Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for your patience. I'll just say there's no fire alarm anticipated today, no testing or anything. So if the fire alarm does go, fire exits are there, and through there. Let's hope that doesn't happen. We have a long afternoon ahead of us as a planning committee. So I would like to make it clear to speakers that I am going to make you stick to your 3 minutes, and I'll give you a few seconds grace, but I'm not allowing people to say, oh, I am just winding up and then go on for another 2 minutes. I will also say, I understand, and everybody on this committee understands, how important the place you live in is to you. And we understand that this particular application has been hugely emotive for a lot of people. And you're going to hear opinions expressed and things from officers that you may agree or disagree with. I'm going to have to ask you not to show your approval or disapproval of what people are saying. And I know that's difficult sometimes, but it is tantamount to intimidation of our members and officers. And I will have to ask you to desist if you start doing that. And I may, in extreme circumstances, have to clear the chamber, which could take some considerable time, and we haven't got much time. So if I can just ask you, I know it's difficult to hear your fate discussed in silence, but I will have asked you to do that. Okay, so with that in mind, we will move on to agenda item 12, planning application 231480 MFUL, Warren View Sports Ground, Halsden Avenue, Exmouth. It's pages 183 to 240 in your agenda pack. And I'm going to hand over to Principal Planning Officer Paul Golding to present the report.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, committee. So this application is before members because a contrary view has been expressed by the ward member and the town council to that of officers. The application seeks planning permission for the construction of a 550 square metre boxing club gym building and associated parking area within Warren View Sports Ground in Exmouth. So Warren View Sports Ground, which is highlighted here in red, is an existing East Devon District Council-owned sports ground in Halsden Avenue, and it contains two full-size football pitches and an associated clubhouse building, which is understood to be currently used by Exmouth United, Exmouth Amateurs and Exmouth Town Football Club. The site itself is located at the end of Halsden Avenue on the western side of Exmouth and benefits from an existing vehicular access off of Halsden Avenue to the west of the sports ground. This aerial photograph shows the site within the context of its residential environments and its proximity to the estuary and the cycle path and the public right-of-way to the west here. And the red line application site itself refers to approximately 0.1 hectares of land within the sports ground, which is primarily comprised of an area of hard standing, which is used for informal car parking, and an area of overgrown vegetation. The site is an area of flat ground between the existing vehicular turning head, the southern football pitch and the embankment which runs around the boundaries of the site. The site is generally flat but does have a slight slope from east to west, and the surrounding land is broadly flat because it's reflecting its use as playing fields with the two football pitches on either side. Members will note from some of the more recent photographs within this presentation that football pitches are currently undergoing improvements, which includes raising and levelling of the surfaces that was approved by the council in November 2023. So the land rises sharply around the perimeter of the site in the northeast and south, and the sports ground is surrounded by a number of residential properties on both Halsden Avenue and Bellevue Road, and these properties occupy elevated positions with rear outlooks over the sports ground. There are also properties on Mudbank Lane to the south who have an outlook towards the site. The site itself lies within the built-up area boundary of Exmouth as defined by the current local plan and the made Exmouth neighbourhood plan, and the sports ground is designated as recreation open space under policy RC1 of the local plan. The site itself is not subject to any landscape or heritage constraints, and it isn't at risk of flooding. So turning to the details of the proposal, it's for the construction of a 550 square metre boxing club / gym building within the sports grounds. These plans show that the building would be sited on the eastern side of the sports ground on an area of existing hard standing between the two sports pitches. The proposal includes the provision of a car park for the boxing club, providing 31 car parking spaces, which includes 3 disabled spaces, 12 cycle spaces and 3 EV charging points. The car park would be a shared space and open for use for the use of the football club, as well as those attending the boxing club and the gym. The proposal also includes the installation of a new catch ball net on the western side to protect parked cars from the football pitch, details of which have not been provided but are recommended to be the subject of an additional condition should members be minded to support the application. And the building itself will be accessed via the existing vehicular entrance into the sports ground from Holsden Avenue. So these plans show the proposed building will be single storey with a monopitched design and contain 2 boxing rings, a boxing gym and an area of functional gym space with male and female changing rooms and toilets provided all on ground floor only. The building would be of a contemporary design with a monopitch roof form reaching a total height of 6.3 metres at the front, with the height reducing down to 3.7 metres at the rear. It would measure 32 metres in length and 20 metres in depth. And the red line that can be seen on this plan illustrates the extent of the original submission. You can see the building has been reduced in scale following negotiations with officers. The building would have a vertical profiled metal clad finish and would contain a number of glazed openings on the front and the side elevations. And external and plant and equipment for air handling and ventilation will be positioned at the rear of the building. And from the information that's been submitted by the applicant, the boxing gym would be run by Exmouth Amateur Boxing Club and would be used as a boxing training facility only, with functional gym space that could be rented out to local groups. It's understood that the boxing club are currently based in New Road in Exmouth, and they have about 20 members. If granted planning permission, the current facility would close and the boxing club would relocate to the Warren View site. No maximum capacity for this boxing gym has been provided by the applicants, but it's understood that the average capacity is not expected to exceed 20 to 30 users at any one time. The applicant proposes opening times of 8 AM to 10 PM Monday to Friday, and Saturday, and 9 AM to 8 PM Sundays and bank holidays, which members will note from the report is the subject of an appropriately worded condition. This plan also shows a cross-section through the site, which demonstrates the building will be significantly lower than the embankment against which it will be positioned. So this is a photo of the site from Holsden Avenue, which is looking towards the site entrance. The photo shows the elevated position of properties on Holsden Avenue and Bellevue Road. And the existing vehicular entrance leads into the sports ground, and an internal access road leads to the football pitches, which would be utilised to access the boxing club and gym. Now, these photos from within the site show the existing clubhouse building here, with the proposed boxing club gym building being on the rear of the hard surfacing, which is at the rear of this building. So this slide shows a view from a garden of a residential property on Holsden Avenue to the north of the site, and it's representative of the relationship between properties on Holsden Avenue and the application site, who have these elevated views across the sports ground and the application site as well. And this photo is views of the site from an area which isn't residential curtilage, but it's some land that's at the back of properties on Holsden Avenue and Bellevue Road, which gives an overview of the elevated position of the residential properties and their existing relationship, noting that you can see over the sports ground and the football pitches. But as depicted on this aerial here, it's not actually photos taken from the garden, it's this area of no man's land at the back there is a garden view depicted here. And there's some more photos that just kind of give an overview of the site. So you can see the clubhouse building here. You can see the area of hard standing in which the boxing club and car park will be positioned, and the internal access road which leads onto Holston Avenue. Turning to the material planning considerations and the planning balance, it is a requirement, the planning law, that planning decisions are determined in accordance with the development plan, unless material planning considerations indicate otherwise. This proposal is for a new sports facility, which is located within the built-up area boundary of Exmouth, and which officers consider to be a sustainable form of development that enhances local sports infrastructure, supports community well-being, and aligns with local and national policy, which as a matter of principle supports the provision of new sports facilities within urban areas. Officers consider that there is policy support for this proposal within both policy RC2, which is new open space, sports facilities and parks of the East Devon local plan, and C3 of the Maid Exmouth neighbourhood plan, which supports opportunities to further develop sport and leisure facilities to meet demand in appropriate locations. The proposal falls to be considered primarily under policy R2 of a local plan, which states that within built-up area boundaries, permission will be granted for new sports facilities and the upgrading of or enhancement of existing facilities, provided the following criteria are met. They do not unduly affect the character and appearance of the area and the visual and physical amenities enjoyed by adjoining residential areas. They are accessible by public transport, bicycle and on foot. Appropriate car and cycle parking is provided. The proposed road access to the site provides for safe exit and entry, and the local road network can safely accommodate the extra traffic the proposal would generate. And the facilities are located without detriment to the best and most fertile agricultural land, nature conservation interest, and the conservation of areas of landscape, scientific, archaeological, or historic interest. So whilst the proposal would introduce a new sports use onto the site and see an intensification of its use, officers do not consider that it would give rise to any significant harm to the character and appearance of the area. The proposal will be visually self-contained within the sports ground site, which benefits from being relatively secluded in terms of public views from outside of the site, which are limited really to the entrance into the sports ground from Holston Avenue. Officers consider that the site would be able to accommodate a building of this size, design and form without significantly impacting on the visual amenity of the area. The proposals would not result in the loss of any of the playing pitches on the site and would not undermine future development of football pitches on the sports ground site. Sports England raised no objections to the application. Impacts in relation to ecology and trees, contaminated land, surface water and drainage have been carefully considered, and there's no objections from the Council's tree officer, ecologist, environmental health officer or contaminated land officer who agree that the impacts of development can be controlled through appropriately worded conditions. The applicants have commissioned wintering bird surveys which report low numbers of wintering birds using the site, such that officers and the Council's ecologist is of the view that there will be no significant impacts on the designated sites arising from the proposed building or parking from noise and artificial light from the proposal. The proposal could result in the disturbance of active badger sets during construction, and a badger licence from Natural England will be required. The proposal includes measures for ecological enhancement, including the provision of external mounted bat and bird boxes. In respect of contaminated land, the site is located on an area which is identified to be a historic landfill site. It is understood that the site is located in an area where clay workings were carried out extensively and subsequently infilled. The applicant has recognised this and submitted a preliminary risk assessment and ground investigation report, which both the EA and the Council's contaminated land officer have considered and advised that it includes an adequate assessment of the site, its history, and makes appropriate recommendations for the management of contaminated land, for the protection of human health and groundwater. Members will note officers recommend a condition requiring the development to be carried out in accordance with the recommendations and mitigation measures contained within the geotechnical report. The level of a public objection to this scheme is noted, and the proposal has been carefully assessed in respect of its impacts on residential amenity. And whilst it is acknowledged that the character of this part of the sports ground would change as a result of the introduction of a new building and use, an intensification of the use of the site and a noticeable change to the outlook of a number of residential properties which back onto the site, officers do not consider the harm to residential amenity would be significant, that would justify refusal of planning permission or that would outweigh the wider social and health benefits that would be derived from the scheme. Officers have worked closely with the applicants and have sought a reduction in the size and scale of the proposal, and officers are of the opinion that the impacts can be appropriately managed through the imposition of conditions which control hours of use of the site, restricting any large-scale events, submission and implementation of a noise management scheme, and mitigation for external plant and equipment and a lighting scheme. Council's environmental health officer has considered the applicant's noise report and is satisfied that noise impacts from the proposal would not be significant to residential amenity and could equally be controlled through conditions. The highway and parking impacts have been carefully considered by officers and the County Highway Authority. And whilst it's acknowledged that existing use of the site by various football clubs has resulted in the overspill of parking outside of the site onto residential roads, which has caused inconvenience and congestion, it isn't considered that this proposal would give rise to any significant highway or parking issues that would justify refusal of the development. The existing site does not have any dedicated or formal parking arrangements, and therefore the parking of vehicles on residential roads surrounding the site which do not have any parking restrictions during training and match days currently falls outside of the control of the LPA and the County Highway Authority. This proposal would, however, introduce 31 car parking spaces onto the site, which would be shared between the boxing club and gym, and those using the site for the football, and this is recommended to be controlled via condition. So whilst the proposal would displace an area of land within the ground upon which vehicles park, albeit informally, officers consider that a proposed car park could help to alleviate some of the existing parking issues arising from the use of the site. In the event that the football club and gym is at capacity at the same time, then it is accepted that vehicles are likely to spill out onto the public highway. However, this is an existing situation that is unlikely to be worsened by this proposal on the basis that the parking area will be shared and visiting parties, such that as associated to football matches can be informed in advance that a formal parking area is accessible, which can be promoted through the travel plan, which again is a submission of is a subject of a condition. And furthermore, the site's sustainable location and close proximity to cycle path links in the town and surrounding residential areas, along with proposed cycle storage provision, the submission of a travel plan, provides opportunities for alternative modes of travel, which could result in less take-up of the car parking spaces by the boxing club. And it's worth noting that no objections have been raised by the County Highway Authority. So on balance, having regard for all of the issues highlighted within the officer report, the proposal is considered to represent a sustainable form of development which complies with the development plan when read as a whole and the wider sustainability objectives set out within the NPPF. The proposal would provide an asset to the town of Exmouth in a sustainable location and would enhance sports provision, which would be of social benefit with positive impacts on community health and well-being, which are considered to outweigh the limited harms that have been identified within the officer report. It is therefore recommended that the application is approved, subject to the conditions contained within the committee report, which are summarised on the slide here. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, we have 5 objectors. So we start with Mark Hansford. No? Oh, okay. Okay, well, I've got 5 spaces here, so whoever's going first, come up, and you have 3 minutes, and yep. I will warn you when you start overrunning that, if you do.
Where it's got the number 19, the silver button, yeah, that's it.
We go in on its red. There is no need for this building. Sport England say they are not aware of any need for this facility. Even Exmouth Boxing Club acknowledge there is not currently an identified need for the facility within the PPS or planning policy. The 180 objecting residents certainly agree there is actually no need for this development. Critically, this proposal is not supported by the Neighbourhood Plan CS3. The policy states that sports and leisure facilities should meet demand. Where is the demand for such a proposal? The boxing club, with about 30 members, is only open for 5 hours a week and is closed for the summer. Where is the community demand for the other 90 hours? Please tell me. The Neighbourhood Plan also makes it clear that it does not support additional indoor sports facilities. It clearly states, Chapter 6:21, there is no need for further expenditure on indoor leisure facilities. There are already a lot of public and private gyms, including the LED, the Cranford Club, Exmouth Rugby Club, and a brand new Pure Gym opening very soon in Exmouth. LED offers over 90 classes. The manager said are not full and can meet any further demand for community use. Building another indoor sports facility would take business away from LED and the other organisations. The neighbourhood plan goes on to say, Chapter 6:22, outdoor facilities are not so well provided for. By intensifying the use of Warren View and building upon the spur land, it will diminish this fantastic outdoor football facility. The second condition in the neighbourhood plan, CS3, says sport and leisure facilities will be supported in appropriate locations. This is not an appropriate location. It's in the middle of a quiet residential area with sheltered housing at its entrance and already has traffic and congestion issues. The neighbourhood plan, policy CF2, states it would support a new health and wellbeing hub located near the LED Sports Centre and the rugby ground, where there is sufficient public parking, transport access and connection to Exmouth cycleways. The Warren View has none of these. No other locations have even been considered. How on earth have the developers decided this is the most appropriate location? The new Goodmoors development desperately needs a community sports facility. Exmouth Rugby Club wants a new gym and a partner to share their ground. Both of these are much more appropriate locations. In summary, there's absolutely no need for this proposal. As an indoor facility, it actually goes against planning policy in the neighbourhood plan. It lacks demand, and Warren View is not an appropriate location for this development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You came in with 17 seconds left, so congratulations. Let's hope everybody else does the same. Turn the mic off, please. Just the silver button there, and then back on again.
Oh, I'm not sure. Did it go off and on?
Should do.
Okay, looks all right.
Yeah. That's it.
Excuse me, can the people that speak and identify themselves?
Sorry,
Yes, that
could
was-
you switch the mic off for a second?
Sorry, Matthew, you don't not get it.
Right, thank you. Okay, yeah.
I don't say about full words, but I don't want to risk going over. I'm Jenny Dunn, resident.
Needs a microphone on.
Jenny Dunn. Okay, thank you. Jenny Dunn for the
Hello.
benefit.
One of the reasons that amphitheatres are built in a bowl shape is to enhance the acoustics. Sound reverberates and even a whisper can be heard. For those of you who are not familiar with Warren View, it was originally a brickwork quarry and then a town tip. This is why it has a distinctive amphitheatre shape. The football pitches in the centre rest on contaminated land, are enclosed by a steep bank. All around the bank are homes. The effect of any sound from Warren View is exactly the same as in an amphitheatre. Everyone can hear the slightest noise. Of course, there is sometimes noise from the football club. During matches, it is noisy, but then everyone leaves and it's quiet. Really quiet. The residents, badgers, foxes, and birds love it. When the developer commissioned a sound report, the equipment was set up and left for 2 whole weeks, and yet only readings for 2 days were submitted. The 2 days when the noisy Party on the X happened to be on. Funny that. As a ventilation system mentioned, it'll be on for 24 hours a day. It will be at the bottom of the bank, mere meters from people's homes. Gyms and exercise classes usually have loud music, and although the plan states, I quote, windows and doors can remain closed, this doesn't mean they will. So apart from the constant machine noise, music, and noise from inside the building, there will be cars toing and froing, doors slamming, deliveries, people talking, bins being taken out all day, every day, all sounds amplified for up to 100 hours a week. The impact of this on all the surrounding residents will be immense. What about the family whose children's bedrooms face the building and would be less than 50 metres from the front door? What about elderly or disabled residents, people working from home, shift workers who sleep during the day, and everyone else who lives in this area and has a right to enjoy peace and quiet in their homes and gardens? Signs asking people to be quiet will have absolutely no effect whatsoever because of the shape of Warren View. A lot of light will be emitted from a building open for such long hours. No survey has been done on the amount or effect of this. Warren View is very close to the Exe Estuary, a wildlife haven. Will the 171 different species of bird seen here continue to visit with so much light pollution and the constant noise? I wouldn't think so. The biggest impacts from light will be the car headlights. Around the sloped access to Warren View are council bungalows for the disabled. The headlights from vehicles exiting the site shine directly into the living rooms and bedrooms of these properties. This would cause demonstrable harm to these vulnerable residents. How can something that would benefit a handful of people outweigh something that would be so harmful to the residential amenity of this area? The shape of Warren View with its residential surrounds and the implications for noise and light pollution make this proposal, and indeed any development of Warren View, totally inappropriate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you. Okay, next speaker. When you start, if you could just identify yourself and then make your points, please. Okay.
This proposal will exacerbate an existing situation. Highways have said that traffic levels are too high already in the cul-de-sac at the entrance to Warren View, and they believe it's already stretched and unable to accommodate additional trip generation. And policy TC7 states that planning permission for a new development will not be granted if the proposed access or the traffic generated by the development would be detrimental to the safe and satisfactory operation of the local or wider highway network. Policy RC2 requires it to be safe, but Peter Bond, who is blind and one of the many vulnerable, disabled and elderly residents living in the area, says he already has to take his life into his own hands to cross the cul-de-sac outside his house. This is demonstrable harm, and this proposal can only make the situation worse. The committee report makes a flawed assumption about the formalised parking. The formalised parking only replaces the current informal parking, accommodating the same number of vehicles in the proposal, and I hope you've seen some photographic evidence that proves this. There is no increased on-site parking. An additional large commercial building can only make the traffic and parking situation worse. The report accepts that there will be days when larger crowds are expected, but doesn't consider the material harm this will cause. On 4 occasions, the report makes flawed assumptions in relation to the possibility of using a minibus. It acknowledges that the use of the minibus can't be controlled by the planning process, but despite this continues to claim that its existence could in some way alleviate or even improve the existing traffic and parking situation. Well, that's obviously incorrect. Its use is ambiguous, and how will it help the 95% of the time that the boxing club isn't using it? The report doesn't even mention that there's no easily accessible public transport. The nearest bus stop is 650 metres away, the train station much further, whereas at all comparable sites quoted in the Highways report, public transport was available close by. Many residents have expressed serious safety concerns due to the impact the proposal will have on traffic and parking on the nearby residential streets, due to the extensive and late proposed opening hours. Cars parked on both sides of the road will mean it's largely a single carriageway, inevitably causing more congestion and bringing cyclists and pedestrians into greater conflict with the dangers of both moving and parked cars. Pedestrian and cycle paths connect the area with the town centre and the fantastic estuary footpath and cycleway, used by 200,000 people a year. The cycle and pedestrian networks bring significant health and well-being advantages to the many users. They are also a major attraction for tourism and the town's economy. These cycle routes have key identified pinch points in the area already, which this proposal can only worsen. By bringing large amounts of additional traffic, on-street parking, congestion and pollution onto the surrounding roads and pathways, this proposal is contrary to the intention and ambition of the Neighbourhood Plan and the National Planning Policy Framework. All of this means this proposal will significantly exacerbate the parking and traffic situation, and I believe it should be rejected. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, next speaker, please.
Rebecca Hadley, objector. This statement is made on behalf of Mrs. Sue Dawson, who lives in one of the 20-plus sheltered social housing bungalows which surround the only access point to the development site. Sorry. Sue really wanted to come, but she's currently unable to travel and she was not allowed to submit a video. These vulnerable people who live right next to the site will be more impacted than anyone else, yet they have not been mentioned in any of the reports on this application, and there has been no equality impact assessment. Mrs. Dawson's statement shows the demonstrable harm that she and the other residents of the sheltered social housing will suffer. Sue says, "I live opposite this proposed development, and like the other residents, I feel that this is in the wrong area. A residential area is not the right site for what will be a major venue for sport, pleasure events and other activities 7 days a week. No one will get any respite from constant traffic. There is not enough parking allocated on site, and there will be noise and antisocial behaviour. The building will be open all day, every day, 7 days a week. That is unacceptable to those of us living in full view of the site. There's only one entrance to this site, and that is right past our bungalows. I'm now in a wheelchair for life, having suffered a spinal stroke last year, and many other residents in the immediate vicinity of this proposed development are in a similar position. The housing immediately adjacent to this site is all an ageing population and comes under East Devon District Council social housing with the support of mobile support officers. Many require help with daily living. What they do not need is another daily problem. This will impact on our mental health and well-being. The elderly and infirm residents are not able to take change on the proposed scale. We know from experience that parking will be a major issue. Parking on pavements, across dropped curbs, with no thought for those of us using a wheelchair and trying to cross the road, making us prisoners in our own homes. I'm already unable to use my disabled parking space when football matches are on. Everyone has a right to feel safe in their own home. The proposed development will mean a lot more noise, strangers arriving at all times of the day, constant vehicle movements, and much more. The vulnerable residents will feel unsafe in their own homes and are likely to not feel safe enough to go out. A development of this size, with the intention the boxing club openly states, and I quote, will be the largest venue in the southwest, shows just how many events there will be, with people coming from all over the region. It's not just an amateur boxing club, but more a business with the aim of making as much money as possible from all sorts of events. Although I believe there is no mention of a premises licence at present, let us all be clear. No boxing tournaments have an audience there all evening watching boxing, drinking only orange squash. A licence to sell alcohol will bring more antisocial behaviour when leaving the venue. This development will be a major events building with music, weddings, parties, as well as boxing. A residential area is not the right place for a major events venue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now Mark Hansford, yeah. Okay. If you just get as close as you can to them, you need to switch it on, red light.
Is it on now? Can I say that I'm Mark Hansford and I'm objecting before my timer goes down?
So the hearing loop is linked.
Ah, okay. Oh, can you stop the clock, please?
Press the button.
Oh.
Okay, start again.
Chair, committee. I'm a chartered surveyor with 40 years commercial property experience, including with local authorities. For 14 years, I was Group Global Property Advisor at The Economist. They relied on me getting to the crux of property matters, and I want to do that for you now. We are not here to debate the merits of boxing. We're not here to talk about providing youth and community facilities. This is about this development in this sensitive location. This is not a proposal for a small local boxing club. You could fit 10 existing Exmouth boxing clubs in the development. The club opens 5 hours a week, but the development would be 95 hours a week. So it won't be a boxing club for 95% of the time. The applicant states that the building will be a boxing club only, but with functional space that could be rented out. That's some spare capacity to rent out, isn't it? The applicant's latest proposal suggests for other sports and community uses. Today's report notes suggestions of a community hub, space for meetings and social events. But the planning officer recommends a strict condition on use as a boxing gym / gym and no other purpose. This won't work. Will the applicant comply and watch the building stand empty most of the time, or will there be an application to widen the permitted use? Location. You may wish to ask why the applicant chose Warren View. We asked at a consultation and were told because it's the best location. So how many other locations did you consider? None. Scrutiny. The football club's lease has no provision for development value to flow back to the council. Noting an enthusiastic response to pre-application inquiries, I asked the estates team whether they supported development. They could block it as landlord at the outset. I got no reply. Now, the planning officer's report makes it clear the football club intend to sublet the site to the boxing club, which has been agreed in principle by EDDC. You may wish to ask under what delegated authority officers are acting. Why are they promoting this scheme, which brings no revenue to EDDC and allows development value to accrue to others? Finally, does a charity with an annual subscription income of £1,000 sensibly future-proof by undertaking a speculative development 10 times larger than they need, costing a fortune to build and run and staff 7 days a week? Sometimes organisations get carried away with an idea. It builds momentum. But from the outside, it's clear that it's wrong, dangerous to some, and not for the good of the majority. It's time to say stop.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have 3 supporters. So I've got Robert Toomey as the first name.
I look really like Robert. As you can see, we're all inclusive. Do you mind if I go first?
No, are you Jupiter then?
Juniper.
Correct. You sometimes get both. Okay, whenever you're ready.
That's fine. We're off. So I'm a supporter. I'm Juniper Connell. My family have been residents of Mudbank Lane for just short of 40 years. I wanted to make sure that the planning committee were aware of questions over the validity of some of the objections. My mum was approached whilst gardening in her front garden and asked to sign a petition against the boxing club. She, quite rightly, said, "I don't really care." She was then faced with a barrage of comments about the fact that she must care and she must object. My mum mentioned that she'd recently lost her husband, my stepfather, and she begged the woman to leave her alone. No, she had to fill in the form to object. Eventually, she said to the person that was carrying the petition, "What will it take for you to go away and leave me?" And she was told she must object. She filled in that form. She then went straight back inside and she rang me. And I have never been so upset. How could she have that happen to her in her own home? Another role I have is I am administrator for Exmouth Community UK. We currently have a membership of 75,000 people. I run no petitions. I have no waiting or preference as to what goes on. Every single time anything has been discussed on that Facebook community page, it has been overwhelming support. In one of the biggest posts, we had 750 responses, of which over 90% of them were in favour. That is 90% of Exmouth residents. And it's black and white. There was no coercion. There was nobody being forced into signing it. I support this. And I'm well under your time, so you might catch up a bit.
Thank you. I'm afraid you can't carry it over to somebody else, but okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair and Committee. My name is Keegan Faraday and I'm the planning agent speaking on behalf of the applicant in support of the proposal.
Sorry, Keegan.
Yes.
I've got two other supporters.
Sorry, are we going that way? Sorry.
Robert Toomey and Richard Powers. Yeah. Thank you.
Am I on? Yeah. Good afternoon, councillors, and thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Robert Toomey, MBE. I'm also a Level 1 England boxing coach. I'm a proud former Royal Marine with 24 years service to this country, service that was shaped by values of discipline, community and resilience. But perhaps just as importantly, I'm a lifelong resident of Exmouth. I was brought up there, I was educated there, and the town remains my home, not just in location, but spirit. I'm here today to voice my full support for the proposed development of our new boxing/fitness building in our town. This isn't just about bricks and mortar, it's about investing in people. It's about creating a space that offers structure, opportunity, and a positive direction, especially for our young boys and girls, which is so needed in this day and age. Boxing as a sport and discipline teaches more than physical fitness. It builds mental strength, confidence, self-control, and very importantly, respect. Values that I spent a career by living by in the Royal Marines, and values I believe we desperately need to nurture in our communities today. A boxing gym will offer more than just training sessions. It will be a safe and welcoming environment where young people can find mentorship, friendship, and a sense of belonging. It could be the difference between them choosing a positive path or even being drawn into a less productive or even destructive influences. Exmouth deserves facilities that reflects its needs and its potential. We have a talent at the club and we have a passion and we have the will to make this happen. All we need now is your support to help us bring this vision to life. This project isn't just about sport, it's about social impact, youth engagement, and community cohesion. And someone who has proudly served this country and is willing to pass on my knowledge and support to our youngsters, I urge you to see this proposal not just as a planning application, but as an investment into the future of Exmouth. Thank you.
Thank you. If you could just turn the mic off again. Thank you, Keegan. You've got a job for life there. So according to my list, you must be Richard Powers. That's correct. Okay.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the Planning Committee and members of the public. My name is Richard Powers. I'm the National Club and Community Manager for England Boxing. I'm honoured to speak to and support of Exmouth Boxing Club. We have a saying that boxing transforms lives. I could say, regards to our sport itself, it's not just the sport. It's a wider picture. It's all about social inclusion, a lot of work behind the scenes. It's not just the boxing sport that takes part in the ring. Currently, Exmouth Boxing Club operates from a compact 12 by 25 foot square, barely larger than many living rooms. And yet they have successfully produced champions county, western counties, and even national levels. This achievement demonstrates that what truly matters is not the size of the venue, but the expertise, passion, and dedication that the coaching and coaches bring to the team. More than just a boxing club, Exmouth is a community cornerstone. It provides structure, youth outreach sessions, non-contact fitness sessions, mental well-being sessions, and welcomes individuals of all ages, genders, and abilities during building resilience and confidence, and offering a safe environment. Now imagine the potential of relocating to the Warren View Sports Ground. Warren View has embarked as a future multi-sports and community hub for Exmouth, with ongoing support and plans already in motion. It is ideally positioned to become a focal point for inclusive sport health initiatives, with this more than Exmouth Boxing Club could bring. We look at expanding the outreach and scaling youth engagement, women's and girls' engagement, and disability inclusion boxing programs. Due to the facilities they currently have, we cannot expand this social inclusion work. And Exmouth Boxing Club have expressed an interest in Boxing Mind, which is around mental health and wellbeing programs, the Veterans Programme, working with former veterans and helping with their mental health and wellbeing programs, the Parkinson's Boxing Programme, helping people with Parkinson's disease using the power of sport of boxing, looking at the social inclusion element from that. Boxing, in theory, there's 1,087 boxing clubs across the country. And with this in mind, 40% of these boxing clubs are based in deprivation index of 1 to 4. 1 being deprived and 10 being most affluent. As you can imagine, most of their members are from this deprivation index, and the great work they do to turn these kids' lives around, also adults, women and girls, has a massive impact. So you can imagine from going from a small front room to a large facilities, the amount of work they can do around social inclusion, antisocial behaviour, and the impact they can do from the wider part of boxing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Keegan, it's your turn now. Keegan Faraday, the agent.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Committee. The introduction has been done. So the Boxing Club have occupied the upper floor of a premises in Exmouth Colonies since 1947, existing harmoniously with adjoining neighbours and receiving no complaints. This well-established club has had a positive presence in the town since this time, providing a safe and constructive environment for countless young people, as well as forming a venue for other small-scale community uses. The current venue has long been over capacity and not fit for purpose, with the club having to turn away prospective members due to limited size of the gym. The opportunity to occupy an unused parcel of land at Warren View Sports Ground presented itself through discussions with East Devon and Exmouth Football Club, who would sublet the space. Given Warren View is a dedicated and accessible sports venue, it was considered a great opportunity for the Boxing Club to improve and thrive at this new location. The Boxing Club have continuously sought to engage the local community and planning authority, hosting 2 public consultation events and receiving pre-application advice from East Devon, who confirmed in-principle support for a new sports building at Warren View. On receipt of this advice, the Boxing Club sought to address the comments received, and through the process, the proposal was also reduced from 2 stories to a single story, halving it in scale, height, and potential capacity. Despite these efforts, the application received notable public interest, both positive in support of the application, but also concern from neighbouring residents, namely with regard to perceived noise and parking impact, many commenting that it was a great idea, but supposedly in the wrong location. On noise, this is a brand new purpose-built gym, so all activity will be contained indoors. The noise impact assessment also confirmed that any noise from external plant would be to acceptable levels, which can be controlled by planning condition. On parking, the proposed car park provides 31 spaces, increasing capacity and improving the current informal setup. Parking will be shared and managed between the boxing and football clubs to avoid displacement. On traffic, the Highways Technical Note confirms additional vehicle trips during peak times are minimal, less than a 1.2% increase, which would be indiscernible in the context of existing traffic. The Highway Authority also raises no objection, recognising the improvements to parking on site. Despite suggestion from some neighbours that alternative sites would be more appropriate, we fundamentally disagree, and, in fact, cannot think of a better location for such an important community provision within the town. The application would make the most effective use of land within an existing sports site, providing a high-quality training facility for one of the town's most long-established clubs. The application has now been running for over 3 years, and the Boxing Club, who are a registered charity, have invested significant time, energy, and funding into this project. Throughout the process, they have addressed every comment raised by the local authority and from all statutory consultees, with no objections remaining. We therefore respectfully ask the committee to support Officer recommendation and approve the application, which will achieve a real community benefit. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll hear from the ward members now. Ward members, you do have the capacity to speak for 5 minutes each, but if you'd like to keep it briefer, I would appreciate that, because we have Ben Wilmot from Devon County Council Highways here, who will be able to answer some questions, but he's time constrained and has to go about 3:30. And so if we can ensure that we have him here, if there are questions that members wish to ask in that respect, that would be good. Okay, who's going first? It looks like Tim over there, does it?
Yes, Chair, I'm quite happy to speak first.
Okay.
And I don't think I have 5 minutes worth of what to say, because the three of us, I believe, as ward councillors, are all bringing objections to this proposal. Speaking for myself as an Exmouthien, not born here, but brought up in Exmouth, I'm very, very well aware of the importance of boxing throughout my early life. I didn't do it myself, but many of my friends did. So I'm not against this application in any way because it is boxing or because of what might happen in that way. My objections are, many of them have been summarised by our very erudite group of objectors from Hallston Ward and Hallston Avenue. And I can summarise, I think, in saying that although the officer reports seem to be positive, there are many aspects with which I would disagree, and I think the positives are being played up and the negatives may be being played down. Noise and light are one of the areas that I would say are important, and it isn't just the noise, as Keegan Faraday has just said. It isn't just from within the building itself. It is the associated noise of people coming and going, leaving, plenty of door slamming, etc., etc. The other thing about it is the amphitheatre effect has been mentioned, and unless you actually go there and listen to it, you don't realise what sort of thing that is. So I would recommend to people to listen to that. It does affect people all around, not only the elderly people near the entrance, but the people above the cliff. Second thing is the parking, obviously. In terms of the travel plan, etc., I think we would, the travel plan is lovely in theory, but I regret that I don't think it will actually reduce the amount of car parking in that area. So that remains an issue in my view. The third thing is the ecology, and I take issue with the study that was done for the developers on overwintering birds. In fact, that site is used considerably by oyster catchers and other birds around that area. So I would say that's a particular issue. The other thing is, while it's a brownfield site, there is a specific ecosystem, if you like, has developed on the bank of the old quarry, where plants grow, badgers have their set, other mammals, bats, etc., are frequent visitors there, and invertebrates, of course, not forgetting the bugs in the area. And I think we need to take particular cognizance of that in an era when we need to defend our nature. The other thing I'd just briefly mention is that when the boxing club came back with their reduced facility to one one story, they mentioned there wouldn't be shows in there and they would still happen at the Ocean Building on the seafront. I'm sure that's true, but then they never mentioned shows in the first place. I think the major events that people were thinking about were the competitions which have been made a big thing of during this application. So that's what I'd say in that respect, and I don't feel that the reduction to one story has necessarily reduced all that issue. That's all I think I'd like to say, Chair. Thank you very much for the time. Thank you all for attending, and good luck to everyone else.
Thank you, Tim. Andrew, you ready to go next? Councillor Andrew Toy.
Yeah. This application is in the middle of an otherwise quiet residential area. The piece is disturbed at present by football practice, which is largely tolerated by the residents, but involves parking in the street, in the surrounding streets, including Mudbank Lane, and the football practice is fairly limited in the hours. The intensification of the activity on the sports ground will worsen this situation, and the extra parking envisaged is only a fraction of what is needed to alleviate the nuisance to the local residents. I'm not quite sure what a noise reduction plan could achieve, whether a noise reduction plan could achieve its aims, wherever people gather together, there is chatter, and that's only natural, and the sounds of car engines and doors, noises which tend to carry given the shape of the Warren View site, and it's already been mentioned that it's like an amphitheatre. What the Boxing Club promise seems to be a generous, community-spirited offer for subletting the building to other organisations. Who those may be is an unknown. Will they all be aware of the noise reduction strategy? And will they make use of the Boxing Club minibus, or will they bring their own? Is the plan for longer hours use of the site until 9 PM every day, except on Sundays when it's 8 PM? An intensification of, as the officers note justifying the approval, already admits. We are told we have to balance this disruption with the health and social gains of a sports facility. But why should the residents have to make this compromise day in, day out for the rest of their lives? If they think of moving, many residents are disabled and might find this difficult. Bad planning can ruin lives. The gains of these facilities can and should be accommodated in other places, perhaps other sports clubs with the land to spare. And to slightly paraphrase Eric Morecambe, this is a good scheme, but in completely the wrong place. So I urge you to reject this application because bad planning ruins lives.
Thank you very much. And we'll go to Councillor Dan Wilson.
This report recommends the approval of this application because the benefits outweigh the harm. In this entire report, not one single benefit is listed. It is universally agreed that there is no strategic need for this building. The proposed structure is 10 times larger than the Boxing Club's current facility, and the opening hours are to be 95 hours over 7 days, up from the Boxing Club's current opening hours of 5.5 hours over 3 nights. If there is a greater need for a boxing facility, why have the Boxing Club not opened more than their current 3 nights? Why in the past 3 years have they not moved to a larger facility to meet demand? Because there is no demand. The Boxing Club isn't even the busiest club. Lympstone Boxing Club in Exmouth is open for a whopping 9.5 hours a week. It is not commercially viable that a building that will cost several £1 million to build should home a boxing club with an annual subscription of around £1,000. So other than a small amount of boxing, what will this so-called boxing club be used for? Potential fitness classes are mentioned multiple times in this report. Exmouth is home to many gyms and fitness centres. the biggest of which is EDDC's own LED leisure centre, nearby to Warrenview and with much greater access to public transport. It has 90 different fitness classes, none of which are at capacity, so there is no demand or benefit for an additional fitness facility in Exmouth. This application stated from the start it was to be an events venue, but when it became clear approval would not be given for an events venue, it was attempted to be restricted through the planning condition 18 suggested by the planning officer. But do you honestly think the intention for this to be a commercial events venue has ever gone away? Because it sure as hell isn't going to make any money out of boxing and fitness classes. It has never been revealed who will pay for this building, and that rings enormous alarm bells. If you don't know who is going to fund this building, then you don't know what they really intend to use it for. How can you as a committee approve this application with such crucial information missing? The benefits outweigh the harm. There are no benefits, so let's look at the harm. The entrance to Warrenview homes some of the most disabled and vulnerable people in our community living in EDDC sheltered accommodation. From Sue Dawson, who you've already heard a statement from, to Melanie Seeley, being treated for severe agoraphobia, who suffers panic and anxiety from people walking past her window or cars parking outside her house. To Peter Bond, a blind epileptic wheelchair user whose carer Tasha already struggles to park anywhere near his house to take Peter out to medical appointments due to the high levels of traffic created by the football club. These are examples of the many people with complex needs that live here. Sadly, many residents are unable to be here today to defend their homes due to poor health. Think on that. There is a reason EDDC's sheltered accommodation is at the entrance of Warrenview. It is supposed to be a peaceful and tranquil area for residents who need that more than most. To inflict a large, busy, loud, bright, traffic-filled commercial property on them is nonsensical and cruel. The stress of this impending application for 3 years has taken its toll and has been a punishment that residents do not deserve. There are over 180 objections to this proposal, many from disabled and vulnerable residents. Section 149 of the Equality Act 2010 requires public bodies to consider the impact of their decisions on protected people such as the disabled. So I inquired with EDDC Planning as to why they had not conducted an equality impact assessment. I was told there is no statutory requirement to carry out a formal EIA, but the EDDC must have due regard to equality considerations when exercising our functions, including when determining planning applications. So how often are the disabled and vulnerable residents mentioned in this report? 0, not once. And yet a random minibus with no plan on how it will be used, who will drive it, how it will be funded, how it will help, is mentioned 4 times in this report, as if it is an important consideration. If only disabled residents mattered as much as an unexplained minibus. Whilst I accept the equality impact assessment is not mandatory, given the high volumes of disabled residents and the overwhelming number of concerns that have been raised, it is astonishing that such an assessment was not carried out. Let me be absolutely clear, disabled and vulnerable residents have not been considered for one moment. That is why they do not feature in this report. EDDC has acted with negligence and has discriminated against the very people it is here to protect. Fellow councillors, I came here today not just to represent my ward, but to speak to you all directly. Nobody has considered residents, but you can. If you approve this application, this grotesque commercial property is forever. The horrendous negative impact on residents is forever. These residents deserve so much better. There are no benefits. There is only harm. Please, please refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have Ben Wilmot from Highways here for about 4 more minutes. So members, if you have questions, if you have any questions about highways, if you could direct them to Ben first, we'll make sure we make use of him as he's come all this way to assist us. Councillor Barlow.
Hello. I just wonder, could you assure us that you are content that the roads are capable of handling the extra, or the possible extra cars, depending on who you listen to as to how busy this site is likely to be? Thank you.
Hello everyone, Ben Wilmot, Devon County Highways. I'm here on behalf of my colleague Fiona Baggett, who was the case officer for Highways for this application throughout. Unfortunately, she can't be here today due to illness. but I have been involved in the latter parts of this application. And since the technical note, which obviously brought about clarity on that the car park arrangement as proposed that you can see on the screen now would be a shared purpose, not just for the boxing club, but also for the football clubs at the moment. I think what's salient in this is the existing circumstance, and that existing circumstance is that there's no recognised formal parking area. We acknowledge there's an area of hard standing, and you know that on occasions that vehicles do use it, but it's not formalised, and it obviously brings about people parking inconsiderately for others. What this shared car parking arrangement does is provide opportunity and a promotion for example, visiting parties for, say, away football teams to be informed that there is actually parking now on site and now available to be used. And with that incentive, which I don't think is there now, is they will go down and actually look and seek to park in this area. We don't dispute that there's congestion at the moment, and we don't dispute that, you know, that there may be on occasions in the future that there might be overspill when the car park is at capacity. But what we have to look at as an impartial consultee with relevant policies in mind is this proposal going to materially exacerbate the existing situation? And in our opinion, there isn't any sufficient information to actually suggest this, especially when there's an incentive for visiting teams, not just from the boxing club or visiting parties, for associated to the football, to actually come and actually utilise the parking area in need. I think what needs to be carefully considered here is when the football is on, and obviously how active the boxing club will be in use, for example, on Saturday afternoons. With regards to the approach roads, Warren View is over 6.5 metres wide. You know, the average estate road can be 5 to 5.5 metres wide, so you have to put that kind of into perspective. It's not that we don't dispute the the constraints as existing, but we have to look at it impartially and on balance of what's put before us. And we do not believe that there's overriding evidence to say that actually this is going to materially exacerbate this existing situation.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Gazzard, then I'll take Councillor Hughes and then Councillor Bailey.
Can you hear me now? Yeah. Sorry, I couldn't hear very well over here. Have you, when you've done traffic surveys, have you done traffic surveys, i.e. Monday to Friday, and then done one on a Saturday and a Sunday? You get a comparison, especially when the football club are playing, please?
No, it's not the role of the Highway Authority to carry out traffic surveys. It's the role of the applicant to deliver supporting transport information in support of their scheme, which we assess. So we look at assess. Information is assessed usually often in the AM and PM peaks, but they provided a supporting technical note with transport information here. And we're not concerned by the additional vehicle movements in the relevant hours. What we're here, I think the area of focus here is the existing circumstance of constrained parking on street, which is the people's concerns, and how it would impact that, which I've obviously just explained through obviously the clarity on that the parking is going to be now shared.
Thank you. Councillor Hughes.
Thanks, Chair. Ben, I wonder, you've recognised as an issue with parking around the area, and it looks like Saturday is going to be particularly pretty bad. Could a time restriction be considered at peak times? Because they operate one around the Yeovil Football Club, which I know works very well, where if it's a home game, then a big time restriction comes in and there's no parking.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. I take it you mean with regards to like a TRO, traffic regulation order. That would have to be that would be a separate process and have to be looked at, separately, because that doesn't go through the planning process. That's a separate kind of application which has to go through our traffic management team.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councillor Bailey, Brian.
Thank you, Chair. Being a local person, and I know this area extremely well, to get out of this area is very, very dangerous, especially on Holston Road, because it's on the bend just past the traffic lights. So I can't see, in my mind, how you could not mention this and just think the site is unsuitable. Not because of the parking is a problem, but the actual access is a bigger problem, and the exit. You go out of Holston Road and you literally take your life in your hands. And Carter Avenue is not much better, because that's by the traffic lights as well. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to say this, I haven't got very great confidence in your report, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions, particularly highways related? Councillor Howe.
Following up from Councillor Hughes's comment, obviously it's outside of the planning remit. If this gets approved and there is a proven issue in the future, highways would be able to do that with obviously the local residents campaigning to the Devon County councillors and, you know, put that on the book, shall we say?
Well, you need to apply for a TRO, which obviously is a traffic regulation order, and that goes through the due process of whether it meets policy. But that would sit, again, outside the planning process and sit with our traffic management team. So if they said thought it was warranted and successful, then that could be implemented. But again, that would be at the discretion of other DCC colleagues.
Okay, thank you. Maybe something for the residents to note then, to get in touch with their county councillors and consider whether traffic regulations order to restrict parking in that area might be advisable. Any other questions for officers or indeed the applicants? No? Oh, good. Okay. In that case, we can go into debate. Are we still on questions, Steve? Or? Oh, you have got a question. And Steve, you had a question as well? Okay. Well, if you go first, and I'll come to you, Ian.
If I understand it right, the application is for the boxing club only use. Now, we have football clubs there at the moment that are using part of some of the buildings there. Where are they going to go and get changed and showered? Because they're still going to be using the football pitch, aren't they? My understanding.
Yeah, the proposals won't affect the existing pavilion building that's on the site. That's where the football clubs use to get changed.
Okay, Councillor Barlow.
How often is the football pitch used at the present time? Is it just sort of weekends, or is it? I went down to have a look at the site because I like to go and look at these ones, especially the controversial ones. But it was all bolted up and locked up. It wasn't like a normal sports pitch like ones I know where you can just go and stroll on if you want to kick a ball about. So it was all locked up. So is it just used at weekends at the present time?
No, I don't definitively know actually how often it's used in the week. I understand that the busiest times are at the weekend.
Sorry, we can't take comments from the floor. Well, I regularly cycle down that road several times a week. And there are certain times you can get into Warren View. I have been in and had a look round as well. And there are other times when it is locked up. It is, I think the main congestion issues are on a Saturday afternoon. But Eileen, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I went there yesterday and it was open. Not a problem.
Okay. Yeah, I think it just depends whether it's in use or not, but it's certainly, I think it is used as a training ground by youth football teams and so on at various times. Okay.
Just one other question then. On the condition that you put down, should we accept this, whatever, on, and I'm going to say no parties, but I know that isn't what it says, no other events, whatever. How happy are you that you can enforce that? And is it something that you could say no alcohol on site, or is that unrealistic again?
Sorry, I'll just come back. So they'd need a license to serve alcohol, so that would be an application that they would need to make to this council in any event. But the condition 18 that does prevent any large-scale events from taking place, we did think long and hard about the wording of this, and we do feel that yes, it's enforceable for, you know, in the context of any, well, exactly sort of large-scale events where members of the public might come in to look at some exhibition match. I mean, what we've recognised is that within the club, it'd be quite normal that there might be a little inter-club, the under 10s having a boxing match, and that mum and dad and grandma might want to come and watch. So the intention of this condition is to prevent those wider, bigger events that just bring in general spectators, but not to be so restrictive that it can't actually operate in a sensible way, to work as a local club, and that's the intention there. And the floor space of the building is not. There was any changes to obviously it's been suggested or concerns raised that there may be attempts to change the way in which it operates, but obviously then they would need to come and seek to vary these conditions, and we would have the opportunity to decline if we felt it was inappropriate.
Thank you very much.
I think also is there a restriction on who can actually be a spectator? They have to be a member? Did I see that in one of the conditions?
It was to try to make the condition more enforceable, so that if there was allegations that people were generally coming in, that we'd be asking for an up-to-date register of who is a member. And so, for example, you could be a member, it would be members only. So you could become an associate member, for example, if you were a family member wanting to attend just to watch the local, the inter-club competitions or such like. So that was how we see it as a way of controlling it, being able to understand who has the right to be there and who doesn't have the right to be there, because there would be a record of who is a member
And
who is
still
not a
enable
member.
the club to be able
Function
to
as a
actually work.
club,
Yeah,
yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think in terms of enforcement, we're going to get tipped off very quickly if anything other than what has been applied for takes place there. Okay, any further questions? No? Okay, in that case, we can go into debate. Councillor Barlow.
Thank you, Chair. This is a difficult one, isn't it? I think we all protect our own homes. We all don't like change in our own area. However, Exmouth is having a huge amount of houses that we are putting on the town in general. We, the government, if you like, is putting on the town in general. And to do that, you need facilities for 45,000, 50,000 people to have the ability to do all the different things that 50,000 people want to do. And there is no ideal spot, I don't think, for anything. There will always be people who are effective negatively, and the perception of how they will be effective is very scary. I've looked very carefully at this. I went down to the site. I couldn't get on the site, but I did stand outside, and I spent a lot of time reading through the different things and a lot of the objectors and the things that people were objecting about. And I think credit to the officers that they have tried their very best to allay all of those fears. They've worked with the club to reduce the size, the thing about no large-scale events, the travel plan, the lighting, everything seemed to be ticking the boxes to make it acceptable as possible. So I would be happy to recommend this as per officer recommendations, with the other condition about the ball net that you mentioned earlier. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So is that a proposal, Ian? Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Wragg. And you wish to speak anyway, Councillor Wragg.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I went there yesterday, and I have to say my first impression was it's an arena, It's an arena. That's what it looked like to me. And it might well become that in the future. We don't know. But what we've got to concentrate on is the application before us. Now, currently, Exmouth Amateur Boxing Club is based in New North Road. There is no parking. It's residential parking. There's no parking there. I don't think parking will be an issue. And with people using a gym, they usually fit people who either walk or cycle. That's my experience anyway. This is a site where it was designated playing field, and that's since 1935. I don't know if any of the residents have lived there as long as that, but you know, you don't look that old, frankly. The Lympstone Amateur Boxing Club, and I've attended many tournaments of theirs over the years, and it gets packed. Pavilion gets packed. Now that's like an amphitheatre there with the Madeira Walk plantation behind, but I've not had one complaint from Louisa Terrace residents, not one. In all the years that I've been going to the tournaments there, as a guest, I've been invited. I've never seen one incident of antisocial behaviour. All very well behaved, all polite. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen anybody drunk. And it's that sort of sport, as I think it was Mr. Toomey said, former Royal Marine. He said it encourages discipline, self-control, and respect, and I found that. And in fact, I can cite one example of, I'll have to be careful how I say this, but he has openly said, if it wasn't for boxing, him getting involved in boxing, his life would have been far different to what it is now. He became a chief executive of a large council. And that's how it turned his life around. I've seen other lives turned around, not just through boxing, through other sport as well. So I think, and as Councillor Barlow said, we're having an awful lot of development pushed on us in Exmouth. There's going to be a greater need, whatever the neighbourhood plan says, and that, I think, the neighbourhood plans are valid for 2 years. Roughly, and that will be long out of date by the time all this development takes place. Further to that, a few years ago, I went to a presentation, and it was for development of Mudbank and the old, what's it called, X-Bank, the rehabilitation centre for people who'd been ill. And there were 5-storey blocks of flats being proposed for the banks of the Ex. I think a modest boxing club with between 20 and 30 members is going to just fade into oblivion compared to a development like that. I don't think I've got much more to say. Transport close to the, about half a mile distance from bus and rail stations. There's a cycle track running along there from Exmouth to Topsham. I think all in all, I see no harm here. The noise would be contained if there is any noise. And in fact, Lympstone Amateur Boxing Club is situated at the back of the parade in Exmouth. That's bang in the town centre. They've got 3 boxing rings there. And their former chair said to me, you wouldn't know we were here. Nobody would know we were here. It's at the back of the Conservative Club, by the way. So I'm not making a point, but I just location-wise, that's where it is. So I've read all the papers. I've been out to visit. I've spent hours and hours looking at this application, and I think other members have as well. And I was one side, then I was the other side, and then I thought, we have to come to these things and listen to all the arguments. I've listened. The environmental health have said there's no problem with noise, no discernible problem. You get car doors slamming, and in fact, I'm sure that the boxing club and probably the football club as well will ask their members to leave quietly and to shut the doors, not slam them. So environmental health, not a problem. Transport, highways, no problem there either. Now, if this was to be refused on those grounds, the inspector would throw it back at us and say, you've been advised by your professional officers there's not a problem, so why are you refusing it? So we wouldn't have a leg to stand on. And so I'm happy to second this proposal, Chair. Thank you.
Do you want to just turn the mic off? Okay, thank you, Councillor Ragg. Councillor Levine, I think, was first, and then I'll go to Brian.
Thank you, Chair. I can't say that I know the area at all. I haven't visited it. I live out in rural Devon, and I came here to listen to the public and to listen to the officers. And I really have to commend the officers who have done a really thorough job in considering this application. And having listened to the objectors, I find that the officers have the upper hand for me. So I'm happy to support this application.
Thank you. Councillor Bailey.
Thank you, Chair. I think some people aren't going to like what I'm going to say, and some people may. I'm trying to be objective here. We're in a situation where we're asked to make a decision on this, where we've got a relatively small number of members in this club with an incredibly small income. So what my question is, how can they sustain themselves without having major events to bring money into the coffers? So I think the principle I'm in favour of, but the position is definitely the wrong one. And I suggest the East Devon car park on the estuary, right at the tail end where the yacht repair guy is, would be a lot better place to put that. It's got better access and all that. That's another story. There's an alternative. I can't find myself, I support it in principle, but in fact, I can't support it here, Chair, and I'm sorry to say that, because I think it's a good idea, but it's definitely in the wrong place as far as I'm concerned, Chair. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I mean, the financial position of the boxing club is not our concern, and how they're going to make it viable, I think has led to a great deal of speculation. They have suggested hiring it out to groups who wish to do yoga, Zumba. It has to be fitness related, in order to comply with the conditions. And once again, there's going to be a lot of eyes on this. It will ensure that they do comply with the conditions. So that's fine. I understand your position, but I think there are sufficient conditions in place, is my feeling. Councillor Faithful, Peter. Oh, Peter, did we ask you about any declarations you might need to make?
Yes, I have received, I think it's the same as everyone else. I know I cannot vote, but I just want to check I am allowed to speak, am I?
Oh, sorry, I'm advised by the legal officer that you haven't actually been here for the whole presentation and questions and debate.
Am I not allowed to speak? I know I'm not allowed to vote.
I'm sorry, Peter. You're just not eligible at this point. You'll be all right for the next one, but if you haven't heard the full presentation, discussion, speakers, and so on. Okay, any further speakers? Councillor Gazzard.
Thank you, Chair. Well, in all my time that I've been on the planning committee, I have never ever received as many emails regarding an application as this one. And I've read every one of them. And thank you for bombarding me. Unfortunately, I can't support this application. To me, it is in the wrong place, especially when there are alternatives available. That would be far better for the need, and we get a better number of people attending. What does concern me is that, you know, when our officers do a report, and it was mentioned by one of the ward members, is that it's supposed to reflect across the board everything. And I have to say that I do have an interest because I am registered disabled. There was no equality exercise underdone, and I understand, yes, it is not mandatory, but bearing in mind where this boxing club will go in Warren View, you're only going to go across the road and see the problems that it will probably cause. Let's say that to me the location is in totally the wrong place. I've been on the site when I could get in there to look around. The ecology in there is tremendous, and I understand what's been said in the report, but I think that having one entry point into the boxing club is going to cause even more problems. I have been around there. I actually walked around there. And the day that I went, there were cars parked on the pavement. So, you know, we hear people saying, oh, you know, there's no problem with traffic. There is a big problem with parking around that area, no doubt whatsoever. And I do not think that the need has been proved to show that the boxing club needs this huge development where it's going to go. So at the moment, I can't support the application, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll just say that they don't have to prove the need. They've made the application. We just have to consider the application. Councillor Barlow, did I see a hand up?
I was just going to point out about this music thing and the fear of them using this as a venue, not boxing, which I think is one of, from the ones I read, which was quite a lot, and I too have been bombarded with them. You know, the fear of noise and what this is going to create. You know, lots of people are saying, oh, there's only 20 or 30 members. If there's only 20 or 30 members, it's not going to be a problem, is it? Because no one's going to notice 20 or 30 members. But they're going to obviously hope it grows. So, but the music licensing, if it had to be licensed, you would have to go to East Devon District Council, licensing department, to get that permission. And again, if anyone says that they don't agree with that, then it has to come to a proper licensing hearing. So, you know, there are protections to make sure this doesn't happen. And it is in the conditions that it won't happen. So, again, I was just wanted to bring that up.
Thank you, yes. And in noise terms, there are restrictions, very specific restrictions on the number of decibels that will be allowed. And I will always say to people, and the officers will say to people, if you feel there's excessive noise, then you get in touch with environmental health. But, you know, a car door slamming is not actually considered a massive nuisance sufficient to invoking environmental health. I mean, much has been made of the possible uses of this venue, but it is severely restricted, actually. I don't think I've ever seen quite so many restrictions on a venue in terms of what it can be used for and who can attend it. Much has been made of the fact the boxing club has only 20 members. If that increases to 30, and there's 31 car parking spaces there, I don't see it's going to make any difference to the amount of parking that takes place in Halston Avenue. and nor the amount of coming and going. It may be open for longer, but I think the numbers of people going there at any one time is likely to be fairly restricted. And I appreciate all the problems that happen on a Saturday. I have seen them, and at other times when there are events down there. And I agree parking down Halston Avenue can be an issue. I'm very familiar with the road, but I don't, our issue has to be, is this going to add to the problems there? And I don't see that it's going to, not with the relatively small numbers that are being proposed. Do we have any further speakers? Councillor Smith.
Yeah, this has been an interesting listen to this point. I'm a sports champion at East Devon District Council, so whenever there's an opportunity for better sports provision, I'm always keen to listen, always keen to hear. I am keen to look at things holistically in terms of the situation currently and the new potential situation, and where the boxing club are now in terms of for Exmouth as a whole and their parking situation. It's a very residential street. I understand that they're currently having to work with, and I think for Exmouth as a whole, moving that site to a site with designated parking off-site on its own site for Exmouth holistically is a better solution than there is currently, and for me that's one of the biggest factors when I'm considering this, as well as providing future proofing for sport for across the district. So yeah, I think on balance I will be in favour.
Thank you, Simon. Any further speakers? Okay, in that case, it's crunch time. So, Councillor Barlow, you proposed, I think, Eileen, you seconded. So we have a proposer and seconder. So I'll ask all those in favour to raise their hand, please.
Three, 6, 7, 8, 10. Yeah.
Okay. Those against?
2.
Okay. Abstentions? Yeah, Councillor Faithful, because he wasn't here for the whole.
Oh yeah, sorry, Councillor.
Yeah. Okay, that one is carried. So I think.
Before you move on, I
Yeah.
have to go.
Yes.
Get on with me, otherwise you have to walk.
I think it's been a tense hour and a half. So I.
You can give Steve Castle a lift back. You can give
Yeah,
Steve
yeah. I think. Oh yes, Steve, we can give you a lift back. So we'll take a 10-minute adjournment. Come back at 4:10, please. Right, members, we have a few time constraints here, so we'll crack on. Are we all here? Councillor Gazzard has gone with Councillor Bailey. Colin's here, but only has another half an hour or so. You've got how long, Peter? Yeah, so you need to go about 4:45 as well. Okay?
Better crack on then.
Yep. Right. Okay, so agenda item 11, land to the south of Tillhouse Road, Cranbrook, pages 241 to 346 on your planning pack. And we have Senior Planning Officer Liam Fisher to present the report.
So good afternoon, members. This application seeks full planning permission for 65 residential dwellings at land south of Tillhouse Road in Cranbrook. The application is before members as the recommendation to approve would be a departure from adopted policies in relation to planning obligations. So the site is located to the south of Tillhouse Road in the town centre of Cranbrook. And the application site is located within the built-up area and town centre of Cranbrook, where residential development is supported. The site was identified for additional residential development as part of the memorandum of understanding to bring forward the delivery of the town centre. This slide shows the site layout with 3-storey dwellings fronting Tillhouse Road along the north and sort of Muse Streets to the rear, and then a sort of central loop road in the middle of the site. There are 3 access points onto Tillhouse Road and 2 pedestrian cycle connections to the south to Luckham Oak, with existing trees and landscaping along the southern and eastern boundaries to be retained. This plan shows landscape or soft landscaping across the site, with planting predominantly in front gardens and between car parking spaces, with 52 trees proposed across the development site. This plan shows the refuse collection plan, showing where waste will be collected from the highway, and there's 2 bin collection points on the private drives to the south of to the south site. This is the street scene for Tillhouse Road, showing 3-storey dwellings, the use of red and buff brick and grey tiles, with gable fronts and projecting brick elements to add some visual interest along Tillhouse Road. And this is an example of the house types on Tillhouse Road, which are 3-storey dwellings, again in buff and red brick. This is one page of examples of house types that are within the parcel itself. So again, the use of red and buff brick with projecting bricks as fit for detailing, and then grey tiles, roof tiles. And again, similarly, house types within the parcel, again, use of sort of red and buff brick, and then use of brown tiles as well. So the update, the presentation has been updated this morning. So this is a photo looking at the site on Tillhouse Road, looking west. It's showing existing 3-storey development on Tillhouse Road. And again, this is looking south on Tillhouse Road towards the development site, showing 3-storey apartment block with a blank elevation facing the site. This is looking southeast on Tillhouse Road, so development would front what you can see there is the pavement, and then the site in the foreground is another parcel in the town centre known as TC7A, which will come forward for residential development as well. This image is of the southern boundary of the site, with showing the trees and vegetation which is to be retained. This is a image from Luckham Oak showing the pedestrian cycle connection from the existing development into the proposed development. And then finally, this is the southern boundary showing trees and hedgerows to be retained, of which a number of them are TPO protected, and showing the relationship with properties on Kingfisher Rise with existing vegetation on the eastern boundary also to be retained. And I'll hand over to Thea.
Thank you, Liam. So this application is somewhat unusual in that it follows on from a memorandum of understanding that was signed by the council back in May 2022. And that memorandum of understanding, as set out in the committee report, followed a quite lengthy and very difficult period of negotiations with the East Devon New Community Partners, who are the consortium for the delivery of these phases of Cranbrook. It ultimately resulted in us as a cabinet, so the council in terms of its cabinet, and the memorandum of understanding was signed by the chief executive, agreeing in principle to releasing parcels of land that were currently identified as being within the town centre to be come forward for purely residential use, and that includes this parcel known as TC7B. That memorandum of understanding also sought to divert away from existing and then ultimately forthcoming planning policy through the Cranbrook Plan, insofar as it agreed in principle to a different set of Section 106 planning obligations from those that would otherwise have been required to be policy compliant. And set out on your screen are the financial contributions and the non-financial affordable housing contribution that would be achieved from this scheme. So it is set out in the report that obviously the MOU is non-legally binding, but it is a material consideration and has been taken into account by officers in reaching the recommendation for approval of the scheme. I'll leave it there for the minute, but happy to answer questions when we get to them if anyone has any further on that.
Okay, thank you.
So, as previously noted, the application site is in the built-up area and town centre of Cranbrook, where residential development is supported. The principle of residential development in the town centre is supported by policy CB22, subject to Is that working again? Yep. So supported by policy CB22, subject to the development meeting the identified criteria. As set out in the report, the development fail to meet several of the criteria in relation to density, adaptable ground floors and infrastructure contributions required. The proposed density and lack of adaptable ground floors would be a minor conflict, and the contributions required were agreed as part of the MOU to progress the delivery of the town centre. Section 38(6) of the Planning and Compulsory Purchase Act 2004 requires that any application for planning permission must be determined in accordance with the development plan unless material considerations indicate otherwise. In this case, the presumption in favour of sustainable development is triggered as the council is unable to demonstrate a 5-year supply of housing land, and the MOU, as previously noted, also forms a material consideration and set out that the East Devon New Community Partners shall be free to develop the application site for residential development in accordance with the obligations set out in the MOU. Sorry, I'm trying to get the slide to go down. Just trying to get it to scroll down.
The slide to scroll down.
The notes.
Oh, can bring it down. Down.
It's not going.
turn off the pointer?
Oh, that's another way of doing it. You should be able to do it. Yeah.
Oh, there.
There we go.
We're just having a few technical problems here getting on to the next slide.
Get a lot more on your screen.
Yeah, that's fine, thank you. Oh, sorry about that, everyone. So the proposal would result in 65 residential dwellings in a sustainable location, and whilst the overall design and layout of the scheme could be more distinctive to reflect the town centre location, the proposal would result in higher density development compared to the rest of Cranbrook. The proposed development would meet the nationally described space standards, and the proposal has been assessed in relation to drainage and flood risk, highways, land contamination, archaeology and sustainability, and is deemed acceptable. The development would fail to fully comply with several adopted policies, such as Cranbrook Plan Policy CB22 in relation to density, adaptable ground floors and contributions, Policy CB10 in relation to affordable housing, Policy CB20 in relation to unallocated car parking, and E7 Local Plan Strategy 43 in relation to open space provision. These policy conflicts weigh negatively within the planning balance. However, the affordable housing and open space requirements and financial contributions were agreed as part of the MOU to unlock the delivery of the town centre. The conflict in relation to density, adaptive ground floors, and unallocated car parking, albeit minor in harm, shall form overall part of the planning balance. The proposed development would result in several public benefits, including the delivery of housing, including 4 affordable homes, which will support the town centre. The consenting of additional residential development in the town centre also secures the transfer of land in excess of the current requirement for town centre land transfer, and for the town council offices, the offer to transfer will be earlier than is currently required. In addition to the offer for land transfer, the granting of additional residential development ensures the financial contributions towards the construction of the town council offices, children's centre, youth centre and library are provided by the E7 new community partners, and these facilities will be in great importance to long-term success of the town and health and well-being of residents. The proposal also includes economic benefits from construction and operation, as well as supporting local businesses and services, and by increasing footfall in the town centre. So there's clearly a need to balance development, which is not fully in accordance with the adopted local plan and Cranbrook plan, but still delivers an acceptable form of development against the need for housing within the district and material considerations which are relevant in the determination of this application. In this instance, and having regard to all planning matters, given the need to bolster housing supply for the longer term, the sustainable location of the site and the wider benefits for the existing and future residents of Cranbrook and surrounding villages as a result of unlocking the town centre for essential commercial, retail and community uses, officers consider that the material considerations in this case would justify a recommendation for approval. Officers acknowledge that there are conflicts with adopted policies. However, these conflicts do not result in development whereby the harm would significantly outweigh the benefits, and officers consider that the proposed development would overall align with the principles of sustainable development. It is recommended that the appropriate assessment is adopted and that the application is approved subject to a Section 106 legal agreement and conditions, with final wording of both delegated to the development manager. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll hear from speakers. So firstly we have the agent, which I believe is Richard Harrison from David Locke Associates. Still the same company, is it? It's just that you're replacing Sarah Phillips.
He's the applicant, sorry.
Oh, you're the applicant, so rather than the associate.
Yeah, I'm the applicant.
For Hallam Land. Yeah. Okay.
Members.
Taylor Wimpey. Okay.
Members, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak about the full application for 65 homes on parcel 7B within the town centre today. The process for delivering a viable development within the town centre at Cranbrook started in 2018. Officers and members have been in ongoing and numerous discussions with the Cranbrook Consortium with the matter debated at Strategic Planning Committee and Cabinet between 2020 and 2022, culminating in the Memorandum of Understanding signed in 2022. The application before you accords with the agreement the consortium and East Devon made back in 2022. The application itself was submitted in 2023 by Taylor Wimpey and Hallam Land and has been through numerous changes requested and crafted by East Devon's officers. The scheme before you today is the culmination of these discussions. It has delivered a design with a distinct character that reflects the more urban town centre and is seen as acceptable by East Devon's officers. It provides ecological enhancements, a gain in biodiversity, electric vehicle charging for all homes, PV panels on all homes, and triple glazing to all homes. The site will make a contribution towards East Devon's shortfall in housing land supply, currently stands between 2.5 and 3 years' worth, as detailed in an allowed appeal decision issued at a site in Fennerton last week. There is much still to do in order to deliver the uses in the town centre at Cranbrook. A variation to the existing Section 106 is needed to detail the enlarged area for the extra care scheme, as well as the transfer of a larger area for town centre and town council facilities. The final element of the HDDL scheme is on the market for sale, and East Devon are progressing plans for a health and wellbeing club hub currently. A Section 106 agreement will be needed for this application, as well as consent for the other residential parcels and partition between the consortium partners. However, today really does represent a further milestone on that journey. Support for this scheme will allow us to continue towards delivering viable uses at Cranbrook for the benefit of all. Any alternative will significantly increase delays and put in jeopardy the work that has taken place over many years. I hope members agree with your officer, follow the agreements from the MOU signed in 2022 and grant approval today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other speakers? No, that's it. Questions, Councillor Barlow.
So we get £165,000 for the homes. For £2,052 of that is for the maintenance of the Sangs. Where does that money go? Because I just remember something that we had to have a lot of money for maintenance of the Sangs because it was worked out. Does this go in a big pot somewhere, or where does it go?
Okay, ultimately, yes, it goes into the big pot to implement the CEDAM's mitigation measures, so the measures set out in the South East Devon mitigation strategy for the protected habitat sites. The financial contribution required is the one that is set out in the CEDAM's report and that we are working to. Obviously, most sites are in East Devon are dealt with under SIL, and so an element of it is top sliced out, and then the non-infrastructure contributions are sorted separately. At Cranbrook, we're zero rated for SIL, and so this is the appropriate financial contribution.
Sorry, specifically Sangs though, is that slightly different? So I understand that the £500, £499 goes for non-infrastructure mitigation, and I understand that we have the special bird areas and all the rest of it where this goes. But is that the same thing as the Sangs? Because I thought that was supposed to be different, that we deal with for paying for.
Yeah, so normally, so the non-infrastructure bits, the bits like the wardens and the other mitigation measures that are non-infrastructure, so non-SANGs, are the £499 bit that you talk about, and then the rest of it normally is taken out of SIL, but this is how you arrive at the £2,500, roughly £2,500 figure here.
And where is that pot? Does that go to Cranbrook Town Council to maintain these pots, or not?
No, it comes to East Devon District Council and is dealt with by our SIL and Section 106 management team.
Okay, Councillor Faithful.
Thank you, Chair. I think two questions. this 4 affordable homes, is that the total, what's the total with affordable and social homes? How many, is that just the 4 or is there anything else? And what percentage is that, please?
So for this application, it's the 4 affordable dwellings. I think it's about 6% off the top of my head. And again, that was something that was agreed as part of the MOU, that these parcels were with no affordable home requirement. But the affordable homes in this application is set out in the report are sort of the leftover from the reserve matters at Cranbrook that are spread across the leftover parcels. To just integrate them as well. So the application itself does not, there's no affordable housing as part of the application, but it's just sort of the leftover from the original application.
And so what was the, density-wise, what was the density that recommended?
So the Cranbrook plan policy is for 55 to 60 dwellings per hectare, and I believe this is around 44 dwellings per hectare, so it's lower than the policy requirement, hence why we've highlighted that as a conflict with that policy.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bloxham.
Just one quick question. Did the officer say 6% or 0.6%?
I think it was 6, wasn't it?
It was 6.
The 6%, roughly, that was...
4 hours at 65 is not 6%.
That was very quickly off the top of my head. It's four houses, 4 affordable dwellings. No, it's 6.15.
What was the total development? 65. Yeah, that would be about 6% then. Yeah, 10% would be 6. So yeah, 4 houses is about 6%. Yeah, yeah. Okay, remind me not to borrow money from you, Colin. Oh, maybe to borrow money. Kim, Councillor Bloxham.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of questions, Liam. You know, bin collection points are my favourite subject. I think you mentioned that there were 2. I thought we'd gone down to 1, so can you explain where the 2 are, please?
Yeah, of course, they're on the 2 private drives.
They are on the 2 private drives,
just the 2 that remain.
Okay, thank you very much. In your executive summary, you talk about the MOU sets out the principle of amending several Section 106 planning obligations in relation to the transfer of land within the town centre and the payment of financial contributions of more than 3 million for the town council offices, children's centre and youth centre. I'm going to query if that is correct, stating the town council offices, children's centre. I thought that 3 million...
It says more than 3 million, doesn't it? So it's more than 3 million. So it's 3 million has been commuted to the town for the children's centre in lieu of children's, youth and library services.
It doesn't mention the library. It says town council
That's true.
offices.
Yes, that's very correct. And then it's £392,500, she says off the top of her head, for the town council offices. Yes, there is a subsequent paragraph that does pick up the library. It's just not in the first one.
What did you say? Sorry, can I come back on that? What did you say for the town council offices?
I picked £392,500. I got that. That's off the top of my head.
No, it's 572.
Oh, 500.
Thank you.
Apologies, Kim. Apologies. I'm confusing
which is
myself.
Why, yeah, I just wanted to get clarity.
Yes, no, you're
clarity
correct.
On those. Thank you. And also in your report, and I did look over at Thea at that stage, you did say that this would enable the town council offices delivery to be earlier. I don't believe that's correct.
What it has the potential to do, if everything's taken forward in line with the MOU as written, and this report explains that there are some complications with that at the moment, is that it would have transferred the whole of TC2 earlier, so on the sign, offer to transfer had been made, as it was actually, pretty much on the signing of the MOU. And then the financial contribution would have come forward within 18 months, I think it was finalised, of the original, of the additional planning permissions. Because of the number of reserved matters that we've had, in theory, we only get to 3,447 homes, which means that under the current Section 106 agreement, you never hit the trigger for the transfer of the land to the Town Council. So in theory, this consent could result in the release of land and some of the capital towards the construction of the Town Council offices earlier than you might otherwise have seen, because you're not going to hit the trigger.
Thank you very much for the clarity.
Yes.
Do you want me to explain, Kim, are you happy if I explain the current issues with the complications? They're alluded to in the report. So the MOU is silent on whether or not there is indexation with the capital contribution to the Town Council offices. Almost all the existing Section 106 provisions have indexation associated with them, but the MOU just didn't mention it one way or the other. So there is an ongoing discussion with the Cranbrook Consortium, between the consortium, the Town Council in particular, and we are involved in that as well, as to how to deal with that issue for the final Section 106 deed of variation. The challenge is that the index, which is largely used in the existing Section 106, the Town Council are concerned that that index hasn't kept up with construction costs from this when the figure was agreed. And so there is an ongoing discussion around that. That discussion has introduced some nervousness amongst the consortium, because if we don't agree on that fairly quickly, they are required to deal with their existing land obligation, so their delivery obligation for the Town Council offices, assuming we agree to add in the additional 3 houses into the Section 106 agreement. Then if they've already transferred land parcel TC2 to us, they no longer have the ability to deliver the facility on any land that they would retain, because all the land is due to then be transferred to the public sector. And that's where there's a slight complication, and that is explained in slightly more simple terms, but the bones of that is explained in the report.
Okay. Any further questions? No? Oh, Mike, Councillor Howe.
I need to come back to density. And I'm not having a go at this in particular, but these are town centre blocks. We always ambitioned, when I was involved in this, higher density going up. And what you're saying to me is this plot in particular has dropped its density. Are we going to recover that in the other plots? Or are we losing density in the most vital and most economic place to have high density, a town centre? Because if it is, that is a serious problem we need to address in a different way.
Yeah, so to pick up a couple of those points, so the density of this parcel is not, it does, is lower than the policy. However, it is higher than the town's average, roughly, So yes, obviously in a town centre location, you'd expect higher. And they were, we've had those discussions with the applicant over the last 2 years, trying to up density and increase actually then story heights. So hence why there's 3-storey dwellings fronting Tilhouse Road. In terms of other parcels, so the proposals coming forward for TC3 and TC8B are. For TC3 is about 66 dwellings per hectare, which is then in excess of the policy requirement. And I think TC8B is similar to this one, so in the 40s. So would be a higher density than existing development, but yes, we would like to secure, would have liked to have secured a higher density in this parcel.
I mean, I get what you're saying, but this is a serious threat to everything we're doing. town centres, not the whole of the town, town centres have to be higher density. That's the whole ambition of what we've said on strategic planning, what this committee wants, and everything else. And if we're throwing that out, then there are going to be problems, and we will start rejecting, I'm fairly sure, these proposals as they come forward. And I suppose that's a warning sign to the applicants. They need to be careful what they're doing in the future.
Yeah, so TC3 is the really critical one if you're thinking into, can we just go back to the plan that shows which are the parcels? There we go. So TC3 on the left-hand side there is the really critical one. It fronts onto, if you like, the supermarket and one of the main streets coming into the town centre. As Liam said, it will come before you in coming months and is a higher density proposal. What we then have, there are existing residential properties that have been put onto TC4A, the 26 apartments, just immediately to the south of Tilhouse Road, again, higher density. The reality is that TC7B, as we're looking at it, comes through the hedgerow and round the corner, and there is a noticeable change in character really from away from the town centre, not least because there are already a terrace of existing 2 to 3 storey properties there, as Liam is highlighting on the screen. They do serve to change the character of where you are, and you move away from that town centre. In officers' view, it was less imperative to push that density up to that 55-60 benchmark on TC7B in its entirety than it is to retain the higher density particularly on parcel TC3. We do also have live applications on TCs 5A, B, 6 and 7A that are also under consideration or come forward in the coming months. With this, I'll call it deal, through the MOU that was agreed, the rest of the land parcels, so TC1 is already in the process of transfer and now has a resolution to approve a 58-bed, so 58 apartment, if you like, extra care facility, bringing with it a fair number of residents. Parcels TC2, 4B, 4C would then ultimately all be transferred into public control, and the council has already purchased parcels TC4D and E. It would therefore be in the council's gift to look at how to deliver additional higher density residential development within that land.
Yeah, thank you, Thea. Really, thank you very much for coming today, because I think there were going to be some quite technical questions here. Okay, any further questions? No? Okay, we can move into debate. Councillor Bloxham.
It's not an easy one. These are all difficult. We do have the situation with the MOU. I'm well aware of all the discussions that have been going on, that have been alluded to for a number of years. I wrote a few things. This was in 2023. I raised some concerns in 2023. They've all been addressed, apart from a simple thing of unallocated parking. I'm not that keen on unallocated parking. It's designated as visitor parking. It won't be used as visitor parking. It will be used by residents for residents parking. So I find that a bit of a waste of time to do that. But apart from that, I think it's a good report. I'm glad that Thea's come along to give you the extra explanations today. And if you're ready, I'm happy to propose it as written. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Howe. Okay, any further speakers? Councillor Faithful.
I just really wanted to back up one part of the officer's report, stating this is a bit of a disappointment for a town centre development. I mean, that's what the officers are saying, and I think they're right. You know, this is right in the town centre. This is what you're supposed to be drawing in to be something, and it isn't. You know, some of us who have been against Cranbrook from the start, well, if they wanted to convince us, then surely you want to put something that's special, that's going to draw people to Cranbrook. And I don't see anything that really, it's housing and it's shops and things, but there's nothing to make it a special town to be, you know, to draw people to, and you know, this is just another extension of that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So the density required was 55. What are we actually getting with this one, Liam?
So yeah, the policy requirements between 55 and 60. I know it's written down in my report. The density is 44.22 dwellings per hectare.
So it's about 4/5 of the sort of minimum density that we were looking for. So it's about 80%. And what's the density for the rest of Cranbrook? By how much would it be above sort of average density?
Now, I confess I haven't redone this calculation in some time, but it was round about 40 to 42.
Right, so it's not a lot above, yeah, average density, okay. So Mike has a point that, yeah, we still need to hit, what was it, 8,000 on Cranbrook?
To be honest, Chair, it's not about the numbers in total, although that is critical for us. It is the fundamental. If you want to drive a town centre, you need population in the town centre, and that includes a higher density. It's the only way it works throughout the world.
Okay, I think we're going to need to see that in some of the other developments then. Okay, any further comments or Councillor Barlow?
Sorry, Chair, I mean, is it realistic? If Mike is saying this is imperative, 44 is quite a long way down. How big are the other developments? Are you going to be able to get that back up to anywhere near it or not?
I'm not sure we know at the moment, do we? They haven't come in. Are you checking on that, Thea?
I read it. Okay.
Thank you.
280.
I think, yeah, design-wise, I looked at the plans. I thought, okay, at least we're up to 3 stories here. It's going to feel that kind of, yeah. But it is unfortunate that we are getting lower density than we were aiming for. And I'm not quite sure how you would have achieved higher density without going up, going up further, yeah. Anybody else wants to see if they can find it faster in the report? Apparently it's in the report.
It's 380 something. I can't remember. 232. There you go. Can't follow. Sorry, 232 is the existing number. So you've got minus 65, 32, 267. I've got my maths wrong multiple times today, so is that right? No, it's 167 extra. Yeah, there you go, Liam's correct, checked. It's an extra 167 you're waiting to come forward. From the existing live applications, but of course, we then still own land that we could deliver extra.
Are we getting the density up there? We're not going to get any more than that.
Yeah. So the issue here is, of course, you need to determine each application on its own merits. So TC3, Liam has said, will have a higher density, but in some ways, it's kind of irrelevant. You're needing to determine, are you happy with this one as it is?
Okay. So, do we have any further speakers? No, in that case, we can go to a vote. All those in favour? or me? Yep. And we need to adopt the appropriate assessment as well. Yep. So all those in favour of adopting the appropriate assessment? Okay, I think that was unanimous as well. Okay. You okay to keep going? Yes. Please soldier on. Okay, because we've still got 3 to go, I think. So agenda item 14 as planning application 250039 FUL. It's land adjoining Stockland C of E Primary Academy, Stockland. I remember it well. And Development Manager Wendy Ormsby is going to present the report on this one. So Wendy's just bringing the presentation round. Okay.
Okay, so this is an application that the description is to reinstate historic barn with extension to form one dwelling with associated works. This is the application site. So the site itself is located outside of any settlement boundary. Stockland itself does not have a development boundary. So this is within the countryside for policy purposes, Strategy 7. It is the site of a former sawmill. There were 2 buildings within the site. Sort of the main sawmill itself has already been removed as in previous years, quite some time back, and there is now one remaining barn-like structure currently in agricultural use. And the proposal is to create a dwelling on this site. The site itself is within the national landscape, and it's within the setting of a Grade 1 listed church, outside the conservation area. And also within flood zone 3B, and there's a plan that shows that a bit more clearly later on. So this is the site here, and that shows how it relates to the village of Stockland, which sits to the north. So this is the site in the context of nearby heritage assets. So the pink colour denotes listed buildings, and the dark pink is the Grade 1 listed St Michael's and All Angels Church. It also shows, this dotted line here, shows proximity to the conservation area. And this shows the relationships to flood zones 2 and 3, which runs along part of the application site, and notably the vehicular access into the site is covered by flood zone 3B. This shows the existing barn that is on the site, which you can see here is a relatively simple, largely rubble stone building with a corrugated sheet roof, and this is the proposed site plan for the proposed dwelling. So the building itself, the footprint, so the design principles are said to have taken inspiration from the building that's been removed, and the footprint is larger than the building that is already there, and also proposes a large element to the rear. The officer view is that effectively this is a new build dwelling. This is not a conversion. This is a new build dwelling on the site of an existing barn. So notwithstanding that the description is for effectively the conversion, effectively it is not, because as I said, it overlaps and exceeds the size of the building that is already there. The ground itself slopes down to the west, and the position of the driveway is alongside the northern boundary. So this is the proposed site with some landscaping shown. So this is the access, as I said, which is covered by flood zone 3B, access into the site, and the proposed dwelling and landscaping around. This is the proposed dwelling. The scheme has been amended since it first came in, responding to some of concerns raised by conservation officers and attempts made to try to minimise the glazing along the front elevation to try and make it less visible, less obvious within the landscape. So you can see this is the frontage, and then at the back you've got this single-storey element with a sedum roof at the back. And this is showing the site cut into the slope, so effectively from this angle, the extended area or the flat-roofed area is set within the landform. And here you have a sectional representation of that drawing. Here are the floor plans showing the dwelling with an attached garage to the north. So this is a submitted artist's impression of the likely view from the churchyard. So this is within the churchyard and views across, so demonstrating that the building will be visible from the churchyard. And here we have some photographs of the site. So this is the site viewed from the existing and proposed entrance adjoining the highway. So you can see the existing barn here. And what you can see is that at the moment it just sits very quietly as a very low-key agricultural building sat within the landscape, and very much what you might expect to see in a rural setting. Here's further views of the building from the southwest. Some further pictures of the building here. Again, what I would just comment on is that the proposal doesn't indicate the reuse of the existing building, but a rebuild on the site. And these are views east towards the site from the churchyard. So that's looking through here from the Grade 1 listed church. And this is a closer view. So you can just make out here the openings in the front of the barn, and that is where you would see the new dwelling. And this is a further view. So from this view, the fact, obviously, it's going to be a taller structure with a pitched roof, and obviously the glazed frontage. So you will definitely see a larger building. You will see the driveway, you would see the garage, you would see parked cars and all of the paraphernalia that comes along with a dwelling. So in officers' view, quite demonstrably changing the visual impact of the scheme relative to what you currently see. And that's a view east from the churchyard. Again, you could be able to see how notably changed that would be by the introduction of a building on this site. So again, this is just showing from the flood risk assessment the extent of the flood zone. So the building itself would be sat outside of flood zones 2 and 3. However, the access is within flood zones 2 and 3, and therefore the sequential test must be applied, and that includes vehicular access routes. There is a proposed pedestrian escape route effectively demonstrated, but the advice and guidance from planning practice guidance is that access routes, if there's an access that's covered by the flood zone, then you should apply the sequential test, which means that you should be looking to see are there other sites available for the development of the proposal. And in this case, there is no compelling need for housing in this particular location. And we would say that the area of search would be district-wide, and there are other housing allocations elsewhere. We don't consider that this passes the sequential test. So the key issues here is that this is the construction of a new dwelling in the countryside. It isn't supported by Policy D8. Policy D8 considers the conversion and reuse of existing rural buildings. This is a new build, so therefore there is no policy support for this dwelling in this location. Clearly, there is the need to consider the tilted balance. This is a new housing at a time when we have a serious shortfall in housing provision. However, the application of the tilted balance is is where you are considering sustainable development. There's a ways in favour of granting permission for sustainable development. This isn't a sustainable location for a new dwelling. There's no access to any local services, so occupiers will be reliant on use of the car. It fails the sequential test for flooding due to lack of safe vehicular access. It will have an adverse impact on the Black Downhills national landscape, and a harmful impact also on the significance of the Grade 1 listed church. Furthermore, this lies within the area of influence on the River Exe, where nutrient neutrality must be demonstrated, and there has been no information submitted as part of the application to demonstrate that this would not have a harmful impact on the River Exe special area of conservation. So for those reasons, this application is recommended for refusal. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, yes, I'm on. Thank you. So we have the agent, Tamsin Froome. Thank you for your patience. It's been a long afternoon for everyone, I think. So you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
So I just felt it was worth sharing that actually we are very sympathetically reinstating the historic building in the context of a listed church. So I just felt that image is actually really worth sharing and obviously hasn't been shown on the screen. So this sensitive scheme has been designed seeking to honestly and sympathetically reinstate a historic stone store mill building to provide a modest two-bed dwelling on the edge of the village of Stockland, being well supported locally and by the ward members. Due to the historic nature of the site that we were aware of from the word go, we have undertaken a very thorough and comprehensive consultation with Historic England. We have demonstrated to them that the proposal will have no harm to the Grade 1 listed building, and they are in support of the scheme. We've also incorporated a number of mitigation measures that they have suggested, and there are no objections from the Conservation Officer or from Historic England. The proposed landscaping has been sensitively designed with meadow and flower species to replace what is now an agricultural driveway, having rubbish, scrub heaps and log piles. This all will help to get in ecological enhancements, as well as us following the ecological enhancement measures as been suggested by the ecologist. All surrounding trees and hedgerows and plantings will remain, ensuring the proposals have a high level of screening. The enhancement measures proposed, we feel, will actually lead to an enhancement of the setting, replacing what is now quite an ugly building with wildflower meadow species to cover the rear element. It won't be sedum, it'll all be wildflower meadow. We have just demonstrated within the flood risk assessment that the site, the actual building is outside of the flood zone, and occupants can have safe pedestrian exit in the event of a flood, should this be required. So there are no threat posed to the occupants. Furthermore, because we are restating in a historic building on an existing site, actually in terms of sequential tests, we couldn't really do that anywhere else because this building is unique to the site. Phosphates, we have submitted a full interim guideline supporting documentation. The county ecologist got back to us 2 weeks ago requesting further information. This scheme's been in for 6 months and we haven't heard anything from them. We thus haven't had time in the application process to address the issues raised, which are all addressable. He's basically requested further information. We have submitted a full interim guidelines report proving that this small scheme will have minimal phosphates output and that will be scrubbed out with a really efficient biological working package treatment plant. The case officer states that the proposal will lead to a permanent environmental and social harms. I would strongly disagree with this. This sensitively designed scheme seeks to reinstate a historic barn form with all extensions concealed within the landscape on the edge of a thriving village of Stockland, with a school, a pub and a thriving village hall. All landscaping proposals seek to enhance biodiversity value and improve what is now a disused building. We consider the proposals will lead to an enhancement of the rural and historic setting, providing a high-quality home close to the applicant's place of work, both applicants being key members of the community, a farmer and a TA in the local school. This, along with the amenities within the village, ensure this location is sustainable. The proposals align with Policy 46, 48 and National Policies 135 and 84, stating the development would represent viable use of heritage asset on an unused or redundant building. Therefore, we feel this application should be approved.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think we're on to questions. Councillor Levine.
Chair, I don't know if the question. Councillor Brown has asked me to read out his opinion in a Paca Devon accent, which I'm going to fail to do. May I read it now or a bit later?
Yes, yeah. So, yes, I guess if he's speaking as ward member.
There's 2 ward members, Councillor Brown and me. May I read its contribution?
Yes, I think, yeah, normally Wendy
Thank you.
would do that, but.
The main issue for consideration is the suitability of the conversion works and the extent of the extension to this historic rural open bay barn, part of our rural heritage. It should be noted that although the site is located on a vibrant village which does have a range of facilities, including a public house, school, church and much-used village hall, I consider this to be well designed with appropriate materials and subordinate to the existing building to ensure that the character of the site is not harmed. The overall building would retain an agricultural character. The proposed development would not adversely affect the privacy or amenity of any adjoining dwelling. Historic England have been consulted on the proposal with regard to the impact on the setting of the adjacent Grade 1 listed church, including its revised design, and they raised no objection. The site is on the existing footprint known as Joyce Sawpit at Podslake, and this proposal seeks to replicate the original building. It conforms to Part D of Policy EN9 and NPPF paragraph 193 and 84. Part C, the development would reuse redundant or disused buildings and enhance its intermediate setting. It is also about 5 miles from the River Axe, and the site itself is in flood zone 1. The only comment I've got about this, Chair, is that he cribbed it from my notes. I'm not going to bore you. I'm not going to keep this meeting going. I agree entirely with what Councillor Brown said, and I see this proposal as a positive enhancement of the settings, and I think that the reuse of the dilapidated building is a sensible way to go on about it. I was going to climb the barricade about something which is my big bugbear, private motor vehicle use in rural Devon, where we are dependent on cars until the council gives us public transport, and in the hilly parts of where we are, we can't use bicycles. But instead of going on, I thought I'd better spare you my colourful face and my even more colourful language when I get to the top. So I'm going to stop here and to say, please, please, do not go with officer's opinion. And it does not give me much pleasure to say that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. 2 words, electric bikes. Just change the world. Okay. Yeah, you do have to pedal. Okay. Councillor Barlow. Yes.
I just want to know, we've heard about the historic building. Is there any truth in that, or are we not talking about that? And I see what's there, but does that carry any weight?
So there was a building on the site, but it's not there anymore. So, and that's the building that they're saying they're going to reinstate. But the fact that there was once a building on the site in the countryside, there's no policy support for new dwellings on the sites where there once was a building. There is a building there now. That's not the building that they're trying to replicate. They're trying to replicate the building that's gone. It's a new build on the site, and whilst we recognise that if you were going to have a building, if this was in a scenario where the principle of a new dwelling might be acceptable, and the fact that they were taking historic reference from a previous site would be favourable, but in this situation, the fact that they are taking historic reference doesn't overcome the fact that this is fundamentally contrary to policy because it's a new dwelling in the countryside.
And the tilted balance has no part to play here because it's not sustainable in your eyes, this building.
In the officer's view, it's not a sustainable development. It also fails the sequential test for flooding, which is, and I know you've been reading the Fennerton appeal, but in generally, I mean, whilst you can put that into the balance, the scenario at Fennerton was it was a critical drainage area. The site itself was not at risk. I recognise that this one, the building, is quite correct, the agent is saying is in flood zone 1, but the access is in flood zone 3B, which means that there would be potentially, in flood zone 3B, if you're looking at the advice, it's a flat out development should be refused.
I think also the building is actually inside, it's sort of built inside the existing walls of the barn, is it?
I think that's the next one.
Is that the next one? Oh, okay, thank you. I'm just trying to remember what I've read. Okay, so it is using those the part of the existing what's left. Well, in planning terms, it is because I'm just trying to find it, but there's the policy for changing what's the word, redeveloping a redundant building in the countryside means that it has to be capable of conversion. Yeah, yeah. Right. Yes. I think we've all got a certain sympathy with this, but it's finding policy support for it. Any other questions? Okay. Debate?
Great deal of sympathy. great deal of sympathy, and I do love the look of the building. I think it would look superb. But unfortunately, policy position is quite clear. On 3 of the 4 grounds we're recommending for refusal. And I believe one of those 4, or one of those 3, I should say, could be addressed, but hasn't been. So all in all, I will go with the officer's recommendation, regrettably. I think it's come too early. I think this could have been dealt with at least the SSI, the River Acts could have been dealt with. That would have got rid of that one. But I can't see how you get over the flood, and I don't see how you can get over the new build in an unsustainable location. So I am left with having to propose the officer's recommendation as it stands.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a seconder for Councillor Collins? Do you want to speak on that one, Bethany?
There isn't really much more I can add, to be honest. Like Councillor Howe says, it would be a really lovely building if it was to be brought forward. But if there isn't any policy support, then I'm going to have to go with the officer's recommendation.
Yes, unfortunately, Stockland it's a nice little place, but it's not. People are going to be reliant on the car, and I know Yehudi says, you can't live in the countryside without a car, and I think we all accept that. What we're trying not to do is add to the need to do that, and that is the entire spatial strategy behind our local plan and government. Go on, Ian.
Well, I know I'm not going to win this. However, I do want to just say that we are forcing building everywhere. And then when there are people who want it, parishes that want it, and I understand your rules, I understand them, but at the end of the day, our job sometimes is to stand up and say, well, is this right? Is this fair? I understand with this one, perhaps they are pushing the boundaries just a little bit far. But again, just keep saying about the car, when in the Fenton one, when I read that, again, he was saying that, cars were acceptable. And what could you do about it? So, and again, I've been on this, with EV cars now, etc. What is sustainable? I know the problem isn't so much with the cars, it's with the roads and the access of them. But again, in places like Stockland, where they're not busy, then maybe that should be allowed more. I know we're not going to win this one, but I just wanted to make sure that we have heard what is being said, and I have great sympathy with the countryside that want houses. And when your parish council, your ward members, if they're all for something, I just think that's the time where we should try and find a way around it. Most of the time, they're not for it, and then I totally agree with the officers. Anyway.
Yeah, please.
Just as a simple pointer, of course, villages, neighbourhood plans can allow such things. They just have to get on and do it.
Okay. So, yeah, but the neighbourhood plan doesn't overrule. I'm just looking at reuse of rural buildings outside of settlements, which technically this is. Number 2, the building is structurally sound and capable of conversion without the need for substantial extension, alteration, or reconstruction. Yeah, I know. It's finely balanced. I accept that. And it could well get tested at appeal. We may find out that actually an inspector doesn't feel that our local plan is sound on that point. Okay, so with that in mind, we have a proposer and seconder, so we'll go to a vote. All those in favour, is there a, no, there's not a habitat regulations or anything to adopt, so recommendation is refusal, so all in favour of refusal. And against? Okay, thank goodness. No, I don't have a casting vote, do I?
Yeah.
Oh, no, again. Well, I've got to go with officers. There is no policy support for this, and despite enormous sympathy for the whole situation, I have to go with refusal. So. I thought it was 3 in favour, 4 against. No, it was 4 either way, was it? Okay. All right. Damien's happy. Righto. So, agenda item 15, planning application 242290 FUL. This is land adjacent to Grove Cottage Shoot. Page 378 to 395 in your papers. And the only speakers are the agent and ward member. So the agent, please, Matthew Dalton Aram.
Presentation first.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, oh, sorry, yeah, it's right at the top of me. I had to turn the page there. Sorry, so Senior Planning Officer Andrew Digby. I'm assuming that's Digby. It says, oh, I won't even try to pronounce it.
Thank you, Chair. This application relates to the construction of a single dwelling on a parcel of land at Shoot. The officer recommendation is to refuse the application, and this is contrary to the view of the ward member. The parish council has raised no objection to the proposal. The site lies in open countryside within the East Devon National Landscape and adjacent to the Grade 1 listed Shoot Gatehouse. There are a number of other listed buildings around, including Shoot Barton Grade 1, St Michael's Church Grade 2 star, the War Memorial Grade 2, the barn and stables down here Grade 2, the Forge and Beagles Row also Grade 2. So bearing in mind it's a national landscape and there's some very significant listed buildings nearby, this is a location which is highly sensitive to change. The site here is outlined in red, and the applicant also owns the rest of this field, which is outlined in blue. There's an existing access here, which we'll see in the photographs. The proposal is to construct a new 3-bed dwelling within the walls of the ruined building. If I just take you back to the aerial photo, if I can. You can just see the outline of the building here in the middle of the site. So as well as constructing the dwelling, the access track would be improved, a new hedge would be planted alongside the track. The piers at the entrance, which we'll see in the photos, would be taken down, and there'd be parking provision and garden provided around the house. These elevations show the walls. They would effectively be cladding, so the new dwelling would be constructed inside those walls. The design has been amended during the course of this application to remove some roof lights that were on the outer elevation. This just shows a section and a roof plan in here. There's a balcony coming off the first floor. On the floor plan, you can just make out some post holes that mark the extent of the building that was there previously. So this is on a larger footprint. There's the first floor with the 3 bedrooms. There are a number of trees and hedges around the edges of the site, but these can all be protected during construction, so they don't represent a constraint. And so here are the photos. This is the existing access, and in the distance just here you can make out the building, which is there, the ruined building, that is. These are the gate piers. They'll be removed as part of this proposal. And this is the existing track, which would be improved with a new surface and a hedgerow planted alongside the fence. And then the next photos just give you an idea of what's there. So this is a view we've already seen, but this is the inner view, and there's the whole thing. So we've got roughly 3 sides. There's a bit of a 4th side there. This is a view looking from the building back up to the site entrance here. You've got Chute Gatehouse just up here, the Grade 1 listed building, and then the Forge here, the Grade 2 listed buildings. And that's the gatehouse for those who haven't seen it. And a recent view from along the road. So in that view, you can see the gatehouse and the building here. And this is a slightly older view from 2021, when the hedge was lower. Again, you've got the gatehouse and the building down here. So the proposal is not for a conversion, so it doesn't benefit from support from policy D8 or the MPPF. The building has some historic interest, but it's agreed by everyone, I think, that it's low to negligible heritage significance. That was the conclusion of the applicant's heritage report. And this proposal doesn't represent the optimal viable use. The site is within the setting of the Grade 1 listed Chute Gatehouse. Historic England and the Council's Conservation Officer have raised concerns about the intensification of the use of the site and the impact on the setting of the listed buildings. The proposal would erode the rural setting and diminish the experience of the gatehouse. This would result in less than substantial harm, but this would not be outweighed by public benefits and attracts great importance and weight in the final decision. The site is also within the East Devon National Landscape and would introduce a conspicuous new dwelling and associated domestic activity into a tranquil and undeveloped part of the landscape. This would harm the scenic and historic character of the area and fail to conserve or enhance natural beauty. The site is also in a location which has very limited access to public transport and is not a location where walking and cycling are realistic options. So occupants would rely on the private car, and therefore it's not considered to be a sustainable location. And finally, the site is within the consultation zone for the Beer Quarry and Caves SAC. At the time of writing the report, the application lacked a sensitive lighting scheme which it needs to overcome the conflict with the SAC designation. An appropriate assessment was carried out which concluded that an adverse impact couldn't be ruled out, and this was agreed by Natural England. Although we now have a sensitive lighting scheme, it was only provided a week ago, and we have consulted Natural England but not received confirmation that the scheme would make the proposal acceptable. The reason for refusal therefore stands on that ground. So in summary, this isn't a conversion. There's no policy support for a new dwelling in this location. It's an unsustainable location. It would cause harm to the setting of a Grade 1 listed building, harm to the national landscape, and would potentially harm protected bat habitats. While there are benefits, they're small and do not outweigh the harm. So in conclusion, the proposal doesn't benefit from the presumption in favour of sustainable development because of the harms identified, and the application is recommended for refusal for the reasons set out in the report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll start with questions. Councillor Levine.
Chair, it's my usual bugbear. Use of
What about the
private
speakers?
vehicles.
Speakers.
So sorry. So sorry.
Why are you stopping me in mid-flow?
I didn't look at my my crib sheet here. I need it to keep me right. Mr. Dalton Aram, I think you're back again, aren't you? My apologies.
Okay, thank you, Chair. We're grateful for the ward members' support for the proposal and would agree that it would reuse the remnants of the building in a way that is sympathetic with its surroundings to ensure the structure's future. The building is in a ruinous state, with only part of the former building existing, effectively its stone walls. Without a viable long-term use, what's left of the building will continue to deteriorate until it collapses, and any historic significance will be lost permanently. The committee report contends that the proposal does not meet the requirements of paragraph 84 of the NPPF. However, paragraph 84 supports new dwellings in isolated locations where, among other things, the development would represent the optimal viable use of a heritage asset or would be appropriate enabling development to secure its future. Historic England's good practice advice in Planning Note 4, Enabling Development and Heritage Assets, highlights that enabling development is development that would not be in compliance with local and/or national planning policies and not normally be given planning permission except for the fact that it would secure the future conservation of a heritage asset. Therefore, we consider that as the proposal would secure the future of this non-designated heritage asset, it would gain support from paragraph 84. Further, criterion B of paragraph 139 of the NPPF states that significant weight should be given to outstanding or innovative designs which promote high levels of sustainability or help raise the standard of design more generally in an area, so long as they fit in with the overall form and layout of their surroundings. In this instance, an innovative design solution is proposed to create a dwelling that sits within the building's existing walls and seeks to replicate a form of building that may previously have existed, with the appearance of a barn from public vantage points, but in a contemporary manner. The proposal would therefore represent an enhancement to the building setting and fit within the overall form and layout of its surroundings, helping to raise the standard of design in this area. We would disagree that the development would harm the significance of Chute Gatehouse or detract from the scenic qualities of the national landscape. The heritage assessment prepared by AC Archaeology concludes that the redevelopment of the building is unlikely to result in any impacts on the settings and significance of the listed buildings of Chute Barton. It adds that the building only falls within the setting of the gatehouse and is only visible on the periphery from specific views at certain times of the year. There are wooded areas between the gatehouse and the application site, which help to screen views of the proposed development. In addition, there is a significant distance of separation, approximately 130 metres, with the site also set at a much lower elevation to the gatehouse. Finally, a lighting assessment has been provided to the council, which demonstrates that the proposal would not have adverse effects on the Beer Quarry and Caves SAC. We would respectfully therefore request that members approve the application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Ward member, Councillor Ian Chubb.
There we go. I would say good afternoon, but I think it's more like good evening. It's quite interesting to watch you working so late. I'm happy to support this application And if you know the location and you drive along the road, you'll note that you can hardly see this. It's set so far down. It's a good 150 foot to 200 foot away from the road. So it's quite well hidden. The current structure that's there is 3 walls. This was an old cheese barn, or what the locals call the cheese barn. The roof's totally gone. The walls have been repaired by the applicant, and he's helping it to live on. And my take on it is the fact that if he builds something sympathetic within the structure, looking at it from the gatehouse, not that you can really look at it, you'll be just seeing a roof above the crumbling walls. He's a carpenter by trade, so he's going to do it sympathetically. I don't see, when it comes to planning, the harm, because the building's actually already there, so you're not creating a new dwelling, you're just reusing an existing building, or what could be a building, to create a new dwelling. So at the end of the day, I could talk all afternoon, all evening about how I support this application, but I'm sure you all want to get home the same as I do. So I would ask you to support this application, but please debate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, now, Yehudi, you may ask your question.
I'm tired. I wanted to ask, really, this business of use of private cars in the countryside, if we're going to play this card, we're going to choke any sort of development in the countryside. And Mr. Digby, Andrew, we usually see eye to eye on planning applications. But I just cannot see that you are going to get houses in the countryside without cars. So if you're going to tell rural workers that they've got to live in an urban area and travel to and fro the countryside, what have you gained? Car journeys are going to be made. So I think this argument is weak. And I really don't think that we ought to use it. But I'm going to hold you to it, because in one of the next meetings, we're going to come to planning applications for 100 houses in my ward in the village of Dunkeswell. And if you don't use the cars to stop it, I'm going to complain. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Levine. I've got to say, it is East Devon policy and national policy about development in the countryside. So I can hear Councillor House saying we cannot make policy on the hoof. So that is one for strategic planning. I have great sympathy for what you're saying, okay, right. Councillor Barlow, we still, well, that's what I was, have you got a question? You've got a question, Bethany. Okay, let's.
Yeah, just quickly. So just in the executive summary, it says that the proposal conflicts with policy D8 because the structure itself would not be able to be supported by the pre-existing walls. Is that right? Am I reading that correctly?
It's not supported by D8 because it's not converting the building. It's effectively a new building within what's remaining of the walls.
So it would literally be sitting inside with the pre-existing walls around the outside. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think it's like the previous one. The building has to be capable of conversion without substantial modification, etc. But in fact, it's not even that. It's actually a brand new building, but quite very cleverly put inside the walls of a ruin. Okay, question, Stuart?
Yeah, thank you. I'm a little bit concerned, actually, because when I read page 388, and it was going on about the 7 bus services serving Seaton, Honiton during the daytime, and said, and then it goes on to infrequent bus services, and that's one of the issues for refusing this. So I looked it up because I thought, well, I don't know, I'm pretty sure that Chute served, and it certainly is, by the Axe Valley and West Dorset Ring and Ride service. And that's a door-to-door service, so you have to book it in advance, but it does say here that the Ring and Ride schemes are designed for people who find it difficult to use conventional public transport, often due to mobility issues or living in remote areas. This is a remote area, I suppose, but the Ring and Ride service is available. And so if you're going to look at your refusal on 2, I think you can scrub that one out.
Okay. I think it still counts as development in the countryside. I'll let the officers...
I recognise that Ring and Ride might be available, but it's not something which can be relied upon for day-to-day. I mean, assuming I recognise you, like you're saying, it has to be pre-booked. They're not going to come and take you to work. They're not going to necessarily come and take your kids to swimming lessons on a, coming and fro. I think they're there for, I would imagine, relatively occasional use, unless you've got genuine mobility access issues. I don't think you could argue that the presence of Ring and Ride would mean that this is now sustainably located with access, by walking or cycling to local services.
Okay, Councillor Barlow.
So again, tilted balance doesn't apply to this because it's outside the built-up area boundary.
Because it's not in a sustainable...
No, but the next one we're going to, I don't want to jump ahead or anything, but Seaton is outside the built-up area boundary in the countryside, but this invokes a tilted balance because this one we're going to approve. I just wonder, this one again, so we are opinions, we're not saving a building, and I understand that we are not rebuilding the building, but if we don't do something, the building will collapse, won't it? And then there won't be a building, there'll just be a field there, I suppose, and a pile of rubble. Whereas this is going to protect the wall that you've got. So in other words, we're keeping exactly the same view at the moment that you have of the gated community, the gate, whatever, the famous Chute gate. Down to the right, you can see the wall at the moment, and we're just going to put, the view will be a roof coming above it, what you would expect from a walled building, a roof on top of it. And from that distance, you won't tell the difference. You don't know if they've rebuilt it or not. It just looks like a building there with a roof on it. And we're protecting what is there now. You're saying that we'd rather that not be there, and that's it. And of course, we would get another house.
Now, if you read the conservation officer's comments, she's fairly clear on how the building has historical significance at the moment and why the proposal to build within it would not add to that.
I'm not saying add to it, but we're not taking anything away from it.
No, well, if you've got a ruined church and then you go and decide, well, I'll put a house inside it because that will preserve the ruined church, it doesn't exactly help the ruined church, does it? No, it doesn't, because... Oh, well, more conversions than ruins. Anyway, possibly not the best example. I don't know. Right. Any other speakers on this one? Okay. Do we have a proposal? I'm happy to propose from the chair. Well, I'll propose from the chair that we go with officer's recommendation of refusal. I think, is this one where we have an appropriate assessment? Yep. Okay, so, yeah, shall we adopt the appropriate assessment first? So those in favour of adopting the assessment?
Can I query that before we do?
Yeah.
Maybe saying the appropriate assessment does not do the job it's supposed to do. So I don't see how we can approve an appropriate assessment that doesn't protect the bats and the big eggs. So I'm confused as to why we'd accept it in the first place. Because if it's wrong, it's wrong.
No, my second actually. Yeah, that's unusual because that's the first time we've had that. So.
The conclusion of the appropriate assessment is that there would be harm. That's what Natural England agreed. So
the appropriate assessment because it says there is harm. Right, as long as I got that straight, because that's just the reason I like that.
It's like double negative or something, isn't it? Yes. Okay, so all in favour of adopting the appropriate assessment which identifies potential harm? Okay. 5. And against? 2. Okay, and we have no abstentions. So moving on to refusal. I don't need to have a seconder if I propose in the chair, do I? Or do I?
I don't, looking at, no.
No. So those in favour of refusal then? Those against? Oh, here we go again. It's hit a man when he's down. Okay, there's no policy support for it. I have to go with the officer's view and go along with refusal.
Chair, my apologies, I have to go.
Yep, okay, Ian, thank you very much. I know it's been a long day. We only have one more to go.
I'm going to present the last one rather than Andrew.
Okay. Thank you, Andrew. Okay, so we're on the last one. Barnard's, Harepath Hills, Seaton, planning application 250750 FUL. And Mrs. Ormsby is going to take over presenting the report because we're pushing Andrew into unsocial hours and ourselves. Okay.
Thank you. So this is application before the committee because it's a recommendation to approve as a departure from the local plan. So this application site is here outlined in red. Barnard's, which is the sort of the host dwelling, lies to the east. And there's a plot of land in between the application site and Barnard's, which has planning permission for a dwelling granted at appeal. The current development built up area boundary is shown by the black line, which I think is around here. And there's also scheduled ancient monument up here shown by blue and another one off the screen to the south. And the shaded areas are all within the green wedge. And those that are shaded red are within or partly within the green wedge and are proposed housing allocations in the draft local plan. Although obviously it's very early days, as we've discussed earlier today, as about whether they will be carried forward. This shows a bit more clearly the application site here, Barnard's itself, and the site which was granted a dwelling at appeal. And this shows the proposed, the layout plan showing the proposed dwelling. And this is the consented appeal at the consented house, and this is the main house. And the access for all three of these is onto Barnard's Hill at this point here. The design is very similar to the dwelling approved on the adjacent plot, other than the addition of stone on small areas of the north, east and west elevations. When this came in, this area generally is typified by individual dwellings rather than multiple duplicate design schemes. So the officer did try to get some alterations to try and make this more of a unique design. It's still very similar to what was approved next door, but it has been changed slightly with some of the materials. And these are some of the end, that's the end elevation and the roof plan. Here you have the floor plans for the dwelling. And these are views. So this is looking north from the boundary of Barnard. So across plot 1, which is the consented house, this is the application. No, that's downside. This is the application site, and forward here is the site that has a consent. This is the site looking east towards plot 1 and Barnard's, which is down here. This is looking across the site to the south. And this is the site looking north towards the boundary with Harepath Road here. The boundary with downside, the neighbouring property. And that is the access road leaving down to the road, which all the properties would share. And that's downside and the application site in the distance, with plot 1 in the foreground. And this is the viewing, this is up the driveway from the road looking towards the application site. So in this instance, and this is, I suppose, responding, Councillor Barlow's not here now, and he was this scenario of is this a sustainable location? So members will recall, because plot 1 did come to committee and was refused by the council on the grounds that the officer's recommendation and the council agreed that this, in the view of the council, was not a sustainable location because there are no pavements on Barnard's Hill to give safe pedestrian access down to the town. However, at appeal, the inspector disagreed. He took the view that it was a walkable, cyclable distance, notwithstanding the lack of pavements, and the inspector concluded that it is a sustainable location for development. So on that basis, we are approaching this with that in mind, that it has been deemed to be a sustainable location, in which case we do apply the tilted balance in favour of development. And the benefits of this is obviously contributing to housing supply, helping to sustain local services, and there is no specific policy support. This is a departure from the local plan, but there are no technical objections to the proposal. So on the basis that this has been deemed to be a sustainable location, applying the tilted balance in favour of sustainable development, this is recommended for approval. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Wendy. Okay, Matthew Dalton, Aram. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. We're thankful for officer support for the application and would concur with the reasons for recommending approval. It's acknowledged that the site lies outside of the built-up area boundary for Seaton, and by virtue of this site is considered to be within a countryside location for the purposes of planning policy. It's also noted that the council is currently unable to demonstrate a 5-year supply of housing land, meaning that the NPPF's tilted balance with regard to the presumption in favour of sustainable development is engaged. This means that planning permission should be granted where there are no adverse impacts of doing so that would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. In this instance, as acknowledged by the development manager, the planning inspector who allowed the proposal for a dwelling on the adjacent site has deemed the location to be a sustainable location, given that a range of services and facilities can be accessed via walking, cycling, or through the use of public transport. The inspector has noted that the site used to accommodate a dwelling, which has since been demolished, and that the remainder of the site was used as recreation and amenity space associated with that dwelling. The residents of Barnard have also used the wider site for private recreation and amenity space. On the basis of this, the inspector considered the wider site to comprise previously developed land, which also lends additional weight to the consideration of the proposal within the overall planning balance. With regard to the visual impact of the proposal, we would concur with officer's opinion that the proposed dwelling would be seen as infill development within an existing cluster of properties along Harepath Hill, and that there are limited public viewpoints of the site. We'd also agree that the design of the proposal and the dwelling allowed at appeal on the adjacent site would ensure that the character and appearance of the area would be preserved. Further, it is agreed that there will be no highway safety implications or ecological impacts arising from the development. In summary, we would concur with the view that the proposal would make a modest but valuable contribution to the council's housing supply and provide economic and social benefits that would not be outweighed by any significant adverse impacts. We would therefore respectfully request that members approve the application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, questions?
No.
Nope. Recommendations, debate, whatever.
I would recommend the appropriate assessment be adopted and we approve this application.
I second that, Chair.
Okay. Yep, I think, as has been pointed out, given the next door has been approved by an inspector, we find it very difficult to resist this. All those in favour? Okay, that's unanimous. With how many of us left? 6. So that was Councillor Howe proposed, Councillor Raggs seconded. Oh, yes. Is that right? We did both at once. Yeah.
I figured everybody was fine.
Yes.
It's not
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Okay, and that concludes our meeting for today. So thank you all for attending. Thank you those who stayed the course right to the bitter end. We've come in just before 6 o'clock, so we might still get home in daylight.